Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first ever Not in Hall of Fame live show. Well, not live, live to tape, where we're going to be discussing who we all think should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We're trying to mimic it the best we can from what they do, except for the fact that we're not going to take all day. We're just going to make it simple. We're going to have fun. And you might just learn something before it's done. Hey. Can we still do that with the Cosby? No? Okay, wasn't sure.
I usually follow with it's roofie time afterwards, though. But
Oh,
nice.
boy.
Nice. So again, great special effects here presented by Not in Hall of Fame. And for those who are watching this for the first time, we've already done two stages of this. We've looked at a preliminary list, came up with 25, matched that with the 25 that the Pro Football Hall of Fame came up with. And then we did a list of 15. So we have our 15 and their 15. If you're wondering why there's 16 on the Not in Hall of Fame list, we did not select Willie Anderson initially. The Pro Football Hall of Fame did, and from new information, talking with a lot of Bengals fans, we put him through to our 15. So we have 19 people in total. Each one of us have been assigned two of these former players that we're going to discuss. Here are set rules. We have 4 minutes maximum to talk about each one that we were assigned. I'm going to ask everyone that we're just quiet while each one is presenting. And then we're going to open up the floor for maximum 20 minutes. I don't think we're going to need that much longer once we're done presenting everything. We're all good?
Absolutely.
Okay. Jared, so we have Jared Allen up first. Who's ready for that?
That would be me.
All right, let's hear about it. Jared Allen, go.
Thank you for letting me join. So 1984 was the first time in NFL history that offenses had more passing attempts than rushing attempts. And that divide has only increased. And since then, the importance of getting to a quarterback has grown. And in fact, it's an essential piece to winning in today's NFL. Jared Allen was one of the best to ever do it. There are only 8 Pro Football Hall of Fame eligible players with more career sacks than Allen's 136. And all of them are in the Hall of Fame. He has more sacks than Ricky Jackson, Andre Tippett, Lawrence Taylor, and Derek Thomas. And only one player has more sacks in a single season than his 22, which is record holder Michael Strahan. Allen's primary assignment really was to get to the quarterback. And in an era where sacks are of high importance, he did it with greatness. He led the league in sacks twice, and that was during a time when other elite pass rushers like Jason Taylor, Terrell Suggs, DeMarcus Ware, and Dwight Freeney roamed the field. I mean, that to me is remarkable. And in addition to his 136 sacks, he earned 4 first-team All-Pro awards and 5 Pro Bowl invites over his 12 seasons. His career really exemplifies greatness. Jared Allen has earned his place in the Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Minutes 30. Well done.
Nice.
job.
All right, so I've got Ronde Barber up next. All right, so I got to put my Saints hat, or my Saints fandom hat on. When we think of the Saints defense, there's like 4 guys we always think of, maybe 5 if you include Simeon Rice. We know what they are: Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, John Lynch, who is going to be discussed later, and Ronde Barber. As a Saints fan, I knew what the other 3 were going to do. Ronde Barber scared the hell out of me because he could do everything. The first guy who really was part of the whole nickel corner. And initially when they had the nickel corner, it was just really, here's your third guy and really your third best corner on the team who is going to worry about that third wide receiver. That's not what Ronde Barber was. He was the guy who was going to be able to rush the quarterback and then go back on defense, and he did it all the time. Ronde was a precursor to what really has become of what every team really strives to have. Ronde doesn't get a lot of credit, or actually he does get credit because he's here, but Ronde doesn't get enough credit. And a big part of that is Sapp, and it's nothing against Warren Sapp. Those who know me know that I love it when an athlete can talk big and back it up. And Sapp was that guy. But Ronde just backed it up without really talking about anything. That's who he was. You never had to think about what Ronde was going to do in the locker room, but you always worried about him on the field. Quarterbacks worried about him more than they did anyone else. If you want to look at traditional statistics, he's the only 45-25 guy in that he's got 45 interceptions and 25 sacks. Nobody has that. Nobody. I am a big believer in advanced stacks, and I know when we get to Kevin Williams later, we're going to hear a lot about that and approximate value. So Ronde's approximate value of 156 matches the exact average of every defensive back who is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So he's got that. If you want to look at moments, Tampa Bay, when they won the Super Bowl, it was a shellacking over Oakland. So there wasn't any significant moment there. But the one getting in there was Ronde's pick six on Donovan McNabb leading into that when they were up by still 2 scores. He runs back for a 92-yard pick six. That is the biggest moment in that franchise's history. And Ronde's got that. Always overlooked, always a class guy. And out of those 4 guys that Tampa had, those 4, and I know that Jack will come up later. And one thing that he likes to, and sorry, I'm sort of like repeating aloud what you say, because I just love how you say that. Who would you rather draft? For me, it's Ronde. I know what I got. He was durable. He holds the record in the most games ever started by a defensive back. You know what I've got? And it's a gem. And yeah, you could say that he's only 4 Pro Bowls. He should have had a 5th in 2002. I don't know why he didn't. That should have also been his 3rd first team All-Pro, if we want to look at that. Also an all-decade team. So for me, I am proud, very proud, and very relieved I don't have to see him twice every year. I'm very happy to endorse Ronde Barber for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Thank you. Okay, so we got Tony Boselli up next. I believe that is... Who's got that?
I got it.
Right, please.
Oh, so yeah, so thanks for the opportunity to join you guys tonight. Sorry I couldn't be on the previous calls. So yes, I'd like to put a case forward for Tony Boselli. A couple of things, of course, we're all aware of. I mean, short careers are rare in the Hall. They get a lot of scrutiny. We're well aware of the debates with Terrell Davis and other players, but they exist. There are a few of them in there, including Dwight Stevenson, for example, another lineman. So I think the precedent is there to have his case heard. And not only that, we know the voters are interested. He's been on the ballot, I believe, 15 years. He has been a finalist 5 times. And what you may not know about it is he's actually made the final round of final 10, the last 4 elections. That's an incredible accomplishment. And it would take some research to figure out how many more players have actually made that and not yet got elected. Now, there's been a logjam at O-line. We know that's what's created some of the delay here, plus a shorter career. But Tony Boselli, I'm really pulling for him this year. I don't know who's going to make it, but I'm going to pull for him. I think we look at dominant offensive tackles in that era in the 90s. What's interesting is he was picked first team All-Pro 3 times. But look at who else was in the league at the same time, and in some of those years ended up on the 2nd team. We're talking about Hall of Famers Willie Rowe, Jonathan Ogden, Orlando Pace. I mean, it was a top era for that. Now, it was a bit odd because he was not dominantly a left tackle. He played right tackle and the issues of there. But we have a player who was very dominant. Again, a shorter career, but enough accolades to be selected for the all-decade team. His probably most famous and classic game, I'm not a big fan of sort of pulling out one game to highlight a player, but one that people will still talk about are the playoffs in 1996 against the Bills, when he held future Hall of Famer and one of the best defensive linemen in the history of the NFL, Bruce Smith, to a game with 3 tackles and no sacks, a game that the Jaguars won. It's also worth mentioning that there is no Jackson Jaguar in the Hall of Fame due to their primary career with that team. So the interesting thing to keep in mind, he was the 2nd overall pick in the draft in 1995, the 1st pick of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So there's some really interesting history there. But I think as a player, yes, we need to think through the short career, but there was a dominance there that I think really needs to be recognized. And I hope this is his year that he gets consideration by the voters. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so we have LeRoy Butler. Jack, you're up.
Yeah. All right. So I'm a Bears fan. Everybody knows I'm a Bears fan. And that is one of the reasons why I wanted to make the case for two NFC Central, NFC North opponents. And first up is LeRoy Butler, who at the peak of his career, at a time when the safety position was really flourishing, we're talking about, certainly Steve Atwater's in the Hall of Fame, Ronnie Lott, Rod Woodson, when they made their shift to safety. We're talking about Darren Sharper, who, but for his horrific crimes, would be a walk into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Certainly, we'll get to John Lynch, and one of my favorites, Carnell Lake. LeRoy Butler, in a run that included many of those guys, went 3 straight years first team All-Pro. And I lead with that. He also had another year where he was first team All-Pro. I lead with that because I think it's the quickest way to articulate how dominant he was in a way that addresses it for someone who wasn't there. But what I can tell you as someone who watched him twice a year was that he was everywhere on the field. Oftentimes you had safeties who you thought of in one way or another. You thought of the guys who were big hitters, or you thought of the guys who were playmakers. You thought of the guys who were closer to the line. You thought of the guys who were free safeties. LeRoy Butler did it all. I want to take a look at this. All right. 20 and a half sacks, 38 interceptions, 13 forced fumbles, 10 recovered fumbles. With him, Lynch, Woodson, Atwater, Carnell Lake, and Sharper, he's second to Lake in sacks. He's only second to Sharper in interceptions, and toward the top in forced fumbles and fumble recoveries. His dominance was such that in 1996, when the Green Bay Packers won the Super Bowl and had the #1 defense in the NFL, they had one first team All-Pro, and it wasn't Reggie White. It was LeRoy Butler, who dominated New England, played up at the line, played back, so much so that the next year, Denver, and Tom, I'm sure you remember this, Denver specifically game planned for LeRoy Butler. I don't know the last time I heard about a team in the Super Bowl, other than maybe Ed Reed, specifically game planning for a safety. They had Shannon Sharp run in the middle of that field to keep LeRoy Butler out of John Elway's face. And Shannon Sharp afterwards said, LeRoy Butler had 9 tackles, but we were able to pretty much hold him in check. And again, that's a team with Reggie White, with the big fella, the guy who was sucking air. I'm forgetting his name now, the big DT. What's that?
Gilbert Brown.
Gilbert Brown, thank you. LeRoy Butler was someone who, as a Bears fan, as you thought about him, you always thought about where he was. And I always just look at peaks, how somebody made me feel. And at a time when there were Hall of Fame safeties and All-Pro guys, he was right there, and he got the recognition from 1990 to 2009, the most first-team All-Pros among safeties. Ed Reed, Brian Dawkins, LeRoy Butler, all had 4. LeRoy Butler, first team, 1990s, all decade. Fiend.
All right, so we've got Alan Faneca next.
That's me. So if you're going to look at criteria for offensive linemen, which is a tough position to judge, we definitely heard Paul's assessment of Boselli earlier, but I'm going to look at the best rated at your position for an extended period of time, be a key weapon on really, really good teams, and durability. Those are the 3 things I look for. I'm going to look at each of these for Alan Faneca. So was he the best? Well, 6 out of 7 years he was on the All-Pro team. We're going to hear that. We've heard that before. We're going to hear that again. All-Pro team is the bellwether mark of greatness. And 6 out of 7 years he was on that team. The 1 year he didn't make it was when they moved him to tackle on a rare, pretty poor Steelers team that didn't make the playoffs, and he still made second team. So he's still kind of right there. He had 3 additional years as a Pro Bowler. We're looking 9 Pro Bowls in his career, which is one of the tops for linemen of that era. Pro Bowls can be a little hit or miss, but certainly that's noteworthy. He played 14 playoff games. He was 9-5 in those playoff games. So this is the key weapon on a good team. So good Steelers teams, he was there, all pro, 14 playoff games. His team won most of those games. And of course, the Super Bowl win in 2006. And you talk about durability, you're talking Alan Faneca, because he missed 2 games of 13 years. His entire 13-year career, 2 games, none after his 4th year. So Mr. 16 games, all the playoff games, that's 206 out of 208 games. You knew where Faneca would be there at guard every game. Another way to measure, those are the 3 criteria I laid out. Another way to measure is look at penalties. And according to Pro Reference, in 206 games, he was called for holding a total of, and wait for it, 4 times. 4 holding calls enforced against him in all those years. 2 of those were his last 2 years when maybe he lost a step. He left the Steelers for the Jets. But for comparison, Mr. Boselli, which was presented earlier, who played a much shorter career, half the career, 100 games, 11 times he was called for holding, and he missed 8 games in that time span. So you're talking durability, reliability, lack of holding calls. So I'll leave you with a comparison to the peers. As was mentioned in the last thing, Faneca was a member of the prestigious 2000s All-Decade team. If you look up and down that team, every single one of the first-team offense is already in the Hall of Fame except for Mr. Tom Brady, who's playing here in a couple of days, and fullback Lorenzo Neal. Fullback's not usually getting the consideration. If you look at the second All-Decade team, 4 of those 5 offensive linemen are already in the Hall of Fame, the 5th one being the center, which is, again, is not a position that gets in. So it's his time. But if you look at the defensive players on that All-Pro team, all the defensive players in except for 2, and they're 2 of our 15 finalists today. So you're talking about somebody who's the greatest of all time, greatest of the 2000s. It's his time. Reward the man. He's been waiting. Alan Faneca. Thank you.
Okay, beautiful. All right, so I guess I'm the first one to go twice. I've got Tori Holt, and I'm going to start with something that I thought a little while ago. Both Tori Holt and Isaac Bruce retired in 2009. Isaac Bruce is currently in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I think we all can agree that, right or wrong, if you've got 2 players in a similar position playing for the same team, there's a bit of a bias. You're not going to put them both in at the same time. I'm going to say right now that they got the order in backwards. Tori Holt was a better wide receiver. I think it always should have been Holt going in first, in my opinion, and sort of going to explain why I feel that way. Yes, Isaac's got, and again, I want to be very clear, this is not a denigration on Isaac Bruce, who I am very happy is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I just think the order was backwards. Holt has less receiving yards. This is true. He has 2,000 less than Isaac Bruce, but did so in five less years. So if you're looking also at who did the most in the actual decade of the 2000s, Tori is not a first team all decade. He's second team behind. I mean, look who's behind: Marvin Harrison and Randy Moss. Now you're not going to get past Randy Moss but he did in terms of overall receiving yards. Holt actually has more receiving yards, not by much, but only 30 than Randy Moss did. But he was right there. Holt also too is another one of those quiet guys. He never promoted himself, and that's probably why he sort of fell behind Isaac a little bit. If you're looking at who was the most dominant person though in that particular decade, you're looking at Moss, but you're looking at Harrison, but is Tori that far behind? I don't think he's that far behind, and I think he could even make a claim that he could have had Harrison's spot for that all-decade team. He's 2,000 yards ahead for that decade. Is as many Pro Bowls, one less first-team All-Pro, 2-1. Saying that, his Super Bowl came in his rookie year. He's also one of the only people in that decade who had 1,600 yards. And I know with wide receivers, sometimes we don't always look at stats in the greater picture, but I think we really should. With everything that he did, he's the only person who sort of like did that again with his overall mark. Another thing that I also want to point out too, one stat that it's kind of my own creation really. It's when you're taking approximate value and then dividing it per game. So with Tori Holt, we're at 0.71. That's higher than someone else who we're going to talk about today, who I love also, Calvin Johnson. That's slightly less than Harrison, and it's more than most wide receivers who are in the Hall of Fame. I honestly believe that if the voters got this right in the first place, I wouldn't be debating Tori Holt. I'd be debating Isaac Bruce right now, and who I also would champion for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That is what I personally think. I think Tori deserved a lot more love. I really happy that I got Ronde and Tori. And granted, I get to pick, but I really just picked what was left. Really, Ted and I just picked what was left. I can't say Evan. I can't say you did because I already knew who you were going to take right from the start. Yeah. Jack, you got Calvin. You got Megatron.
I do. And I'd like to start it here. I think there are a few different tiers of Hall of Famer. I think that the top is someone who's in the conversation for the greatest ever at their position. I think then you have people who, for a large period of their career, could have confused you as being someone who was the greatest ever. For example, I watched The Godfather. I go, there's no movie better than this movie. But I get to the end of Godfather 2, and I say, shit, there's no movie better than this movie. Now, if I go back and watch The Godfather again, I go, oh, never mind, this is the better movie. Calvin Johnson is not the greatest ever, but he's someone who could have confused you as the greatest ever. And he belongs in that next tier of Hall of Famers who's the greatest of his era. Tori Holt, I would put into the spot of could confuse you for the greatest of his era for a year. And what I love about Tori Holt, not to make the wrong case here, but what I love about Tori Holt was that in an era where he's going up against Moss, Harrison, Owens, he had a year where you were like, that guy might be the best wide receiver in the NFL. And I agree with you, Kirk. He should have gone in ahead of Isaac Bruce. So I would never say that Tori Holt was better than Moss, Harrison, or Terrell Owens. But I would say that for a year, he made me believe he was. And for most of his career, Calvin Johnson made me believe he was the best wide receiver of all time. He made me believe that no wide receiver could have been better than what he did. Again, this is an NFC North guy who I got to watch every year. I think that the least interesting thing about Calvin Johnson are the raw numbers, but here they are. 9 seasons, 7 of which were 1,000 yards, 6 of which were Pro Bowl, 4 of which he went for 10 touchdowns or more. He was first team AP All-Pro, AP Vinny, AP All-Pro 3 times. He was the NFL's league leader in yardage twice. He was the NFL's league leader in touchdowns once. And here's the big one. He set the NFL record for most receiving yards in a season. Most receiving yards in a season. And he did it where he was the guy. It wasn't Randy Moss lining up opposite Chris Carter. It wasn't Marvin lining up against, opposite Reggie Wayne, T.O. with Jerry Rice, or Jerry Rice with John Taylor, or Tori Holt and Isaac Bruce. It was Calvin Johnson catching passes in triple coverage, looking like there is not a chance in the world of earth that any person could ever play this position better than this person. In 9 seasons, and I understand this is the, bulk of a decade, he only played 9 years, but he played 6 of those 9 years in the 2010s, and that was enough for him to be named to the 2010 All-Decade team. I'm not here to make the case for Calvin Johnson in the Hall of Fame. I think we all know Calvin Johnson is a Hall of Famer. I'm here to make the case for Calvin Johnson as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Now, I look at this list, and if I had my druthers, I'd go Peyton, I'd go Charles Woodson, and then I'd start looking at Lorenzo Neal. I'd start looking at Steve Tasker. I want Alan Faneca in. As my guys kind of get siphoned off, then I have to look again over here, over there. And Calvin Johnson, though, but for Peyton and Charles Woodson, is someone who you'd say, this is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Again, would I put him above Peyton Manning and Charles Woodson? No. Longevity, championships, what are you going to do? But did he play his position as well as they did? Yes. Did he make me look at him and say, Peyton Manning, best quarterback of all time, Charles Woodson, best DB of all time, Calvin Johnson, I look at him, and unless the Godfather's on, I'm looking at Calvin Johnson going, that's the best wide receiver of all time. I'm looking at him saying, could Jerry Rice do these things? Did Randy Moss have this heart? Did Terrell Owens have this? Marvin? That's how I look at Calvin Johnson. This isn't about, is he in the Hall of Fame? He's in the Hall of Fame. We all know he's in the Hall of Fame. This is about, this guy is one of the top 5 remaining names on this list.
Okay.
And I yield back my time. I've been waiting all week to say that.
Nice, nice.
You did a great job, Jack.
As a Canadian, I have no idea what you're talking about, but that's all right. Actually, I'm glad you brought up Peyton Manning. I realized in our opening, I forgot to mention that for those watching, Peyton Manning, no one's been assigned Peyton. We've all agreed unilaterally. There's no point to debate Peyton Manning. He's going in the Pro Football Hall of Fame automatically. One spot is already full. For the most part, we think a second one is, but we left that open anyway. And it sort of worked out in terms of just everyone got to sort of present two. So we have John Lynch up next. Vinny, you're up twice.
Nice. Well, John Lynch, as we know, everyone knows him currently as the San Francisco 49ers general manager. But considering that everyone else is older, you all remember him as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and later on he became a Denver Bronco. And for a very, very brief moment of time, he was actually in the preseason a New England Patriots. But we are here to talk about his case, and he is no stranger to this floor. He, in his 9th year of eligibility, this is 8th time as a finalist. He's been in the top 15 multiple times. He's been in the top 10 several times. This poor guy has been waiting here, waiting in the hotel room, waiting for, David Baker to knock, and he just gets the phone call and he just balls into tears. But let's get on to it. So this guy, of course, 9-time Pro Bowler, 4-time All-Pro. Yep, that is both Associated Press. 2 of them first team, 2 of them second team. When you think about those Buccaneers teams themselves, who were the 3 major players? You think of Warren Sapp, who is considered the heart of that Tampa 2 defense. You think of Derek Brooks. He was the soul of that defense. But what was John Lynch? He was the conscience of that defense. He was their leader. He was there before both Sapp and Brooks was there. So we had to deal with some pretty bad teams, but he was still pretty dominant. Keep in mind, this is also the time where everyone knew that the safeties were very, very hard-hitting men. They were basically pseudo linebackers. In many ways, he was the quarterback of the defensive backs. And always, every single day, you always knew that one way, shape, or form, John Lynch was going to bulldoze you and knock you down, and there's a chance you might lose. And now, he also had a bit of a resurgence when he was with the Denver Broncos from 04 to 07. Because of how well he did, he was also in their Ring of Honor. There's only 9 people, including him, that are on more than 1 Ring of Honors. Those are Vince Lombardi, Sonny Jurgensen, Nick Buoniconti, Paul Warfield, Eric Dickerson, Reggie White, Charles Haley, and Marshall Falk. Also, he also won the Bart Starr Award in 2007, exemplifying his role as a leader on that team, on the Broncos, and for his entire career. But I also say that it may not come up as much as someone else for the advanced stats, but when you saw that guy every single day of the week, you knew that this guy was something special at the safety position. Now, one could say, oh, he's not part of the all-decade team. That's mainly because his all-pros were kind of sandwiched in the very early of the 2000s. And, as we know, Darren Sharper took that spot, and he's never going to make it because, we quoted Bill Cosby before. That's all I'm going to say there. But yeah, I'd say that because of his impact on the field and because he was part of that champion-winning Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, he was the 3rd cog in that wheel from hopeful future Hall of Famer Monty Kiffin, his defense. Yes, an assistant coach there. I think, it's about time. This is 8th time as a finalist. He's waited long enough. He doesn't want to be another Jerry Kramer. That's my case for John Lynch in the Hall of Fame. And
you might as well just go right to Clay.
Okay, Clay. He is basically the Hall of Fame's Gino. In case you guys don't know who Gino is a character from an old Mario game that many people want to see in the Smash Brothers franchise. He's been only in like 1 Mario game, but
I know. Well, you got me. I get that.
Yeah,
right.
you have you too, Alec. But Gino is one of the most requested ones ever, even though he's so out of place. And in many ways, but really looking at it, you could argue that maybe there isn't that many similarities, but I don't know, just throwing that out there. Now, why is Clay here? Well, let's first off look at the player. We know that he has been in the league for a very, very, very long time. This guy played 278 games he amassed, 19 seasons at linebacker. That's the most out of anyone at the position, most ever. Only missed 26 games. So if the best ability is availability, Clay Matthews Jr. was your guy. For those Browns teams of the late 70s, 80s, and even when he was with the Falcons the last couple of years of his career, he always knew to come up on the field. And they didn't count as many sacks back then, but as a middle linebacker, Clay Matthews Jr. was someone that amassed 94.5 sacks, which is pretty cool. And even though he has one All-Pro Associated Press, on Pro Football Reference, he's actually listed as a second team All-Decade, believe it or not. And don't keep in mind, this guy is also known for fumbling the ball 27 times. He forced fumbles and he recovered 14 of them, even got a couple touchdowns out of it. And he was a tackling beast, of course, at linebacker. He's third all time in total tackles, averaging 5.62 tackles per game. And of course, as we know, last year, he was also inducted into the team's Ring of Honor. But we also need to understand why Clay Matthews Jr. is also here. It's his final year on the modern era ballot. And could he be like Elvin Bethea or Carl, or could he be more like, or is he more like someone like Everson Walls or Joe Jacoby? But okay, let's also get it out. Let's just clear the elephant in the room right here. The only reason as to why Clay Matthews Jr. made it this far is because his daughter Jen organized probably the best modern era campaign there is. So much so that I would argue he is basically the most requested modern era candidate since Terrell Owens. Not only that, even though I kind of mix the feelings in the fan poll, Clay Matthews Jr. actually has more votes than Peyton Manning. I mean,
the fan poll. Okay.
Take that for what it's worth. I'm trying to be serious here, but at the same time, you don't get that overnight. I mean, last year LeRoy Butler had the most amount of votes, and many people want to see LeRoy Butler, including myself, make the Hall of Fame, and I don't really have an issue with that. But the fact that Clay Matthews Jr. is here in the first place says a lot about how many people want him. And we've seen quotes from Nick Saban and Howie Long and Jim Kelly. We also heard from Bill Cowher as well, advocating for Clay Matthews Jr. And, it's his final year on the modern era ballot, and many voters have said that they wanted to see some of these older guys get in. And for all we know, even though I would rather have other linebackers before Clay Matthews Jr., if I'm playing devil's advocate here, maybe adding a guy like Clay Matthews Jr. could actually increase the support of someone like a Zach Thomas, or increase the support of someone like Carl Mecklenburg, or other guys like Howley or Gradishaw or Vaughn or Novus in the future. Now, granted, this is all hypothetical, so I might completely be reading the room completely wrong. I might have blindfolds on. But at the same time, I mentioned Clay Matthews Jr. It's what the fans wanted. Put him in. You'll make him happy, especially in Ohio.
Okay. All right. I've been looking forward to this one. Ted, you got Sam Mills.
Well, I think you guys know that I've already sent the case for him electronically. I'm not as eloquent as many of you are speaking, so I'm more of a bullet point. Here's the facts, hard and fast. 3-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler. You have to remember he was in the NFC at the same time as Lawrence Taylor, Singletary, Ricky Jackson, Harry Carson, Charles Haley, Kevin Green, all competing for those couple Pro Bowl slots. So that's just the NFC. His stats: 1,265 tackles, 20 and a half sacks, 11 interceptions, 22 forced fumbles, 23 fumbles recovered. If you add in what he missed during his time in USFL, again, this is the Pro Football Hall of Fame, not the NFL Hall of Fame. You add in those 3 seasons, those stats skyrocket. His 1,142 solo tackles are 11th all time at inside linebacker, ahead of Zach Thomas, Mecklenburg, Urlacher. His 1,265 tackles all time are 21st. all time. He didn't make the NFL until he was 27. So again, if you factor in his previous time, he's going to be near the top of every list. During his time in the USFL, he had played on three teams in 3 seasons that made the USFL championship. He was considered one of the 3 best players of the USFL at a time when they had Reggie White, Jim Kelly, and Herschel Walker. So according to some of the experts, he's ahead of one of them. So that's pretty impressive. As you know, he's one of the famed Dome Patrol members, with one of the others already in the hall, and Ricky Jackson. That group for linebackers was rated the #1 linebacker corps in NFL history, ahead of other linebacker groups that are pretty impressive. His Pro Football Reference career weighted average at inside linebacker, 8th all time. Behind all of them are Hall of Famers, and then Bobby Wagner. Ahead of Hall of Famers Nitschke, Carson, Lanier, Butkus, Huff, and ahead of other guys that have been discussed for the Hall, such as Gradisher, Mecklenburg, Kuechly, and Willis, that will be talked about in future years. I'm going to give a shout out to notinthehallofFame.com. He's ranked 48th on that list. Probably will go up, hopefully, after this. Clay Matthews, on the other hand, 75th on that list.
Yeah, I hear it's a great site.
Yeah.
It's an awesome site.
Yep.
I go there every
Good,
day.
if I have to say so myself.
Sam was not an all-decade choice. I think it's really because of when his career started. That's the one negative I hate about the all-decade. If you played from 85 to 95, that really decreases your chances of all-decade. So I think if his years would have played out a little different, he could have been an all-decade. He was Pro Football Reference, 2nd team all-decade for the 90s. Again, his numbers, the only one retired by the Panthers. He was considered the heart and soul of his teams. So yes, sometimes his stats may go short because of his shorter NFL career, but he's the heart and soul, according to everybody who played with him. He was considered by Coach Mora as the best player he ever coached. And he coached Swilling, Ricky Jackson, Willie Roaf, Coach Manning. I'm going to say he probably forgot about Peyton Manning. But that is the case for Sam Mills for the Hall of Fame.
Okay. All right. Evan, you got Richard Seymour. So you're first time you're up, and you got a pat. Right up.
Yeah, I do have to say though, Moore probably thinks that Mills is a little bit of a tackler than Manning. We'll leave it at that. But yeah, so Richard Seymour, he's not on our list, and I honestly blame myself for that. Because I didn't defend him as much as I should have as a Patriots fan. As you guys know, Richard Seymour, I remember watching the NFL draft when he was drafted back in 2001 in my dorm room at American University. And the Patriots were up with the 6th pick, and I'm like, oh man, I hope they draft David Terrell. I hope they draft David Terrell. And then they drafted Richard Seymour. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe we got this guy. We need a wide receiver. Fortunately, I am not the GM of the New England Patriots. It was a much better pick than I originally anticipated. So Seymour is, this is his 3rd ballot. He had a 13, sorry, the wrong page. So he had a 12-year career, 8 with the Patriots, 4 with the Raiders. He was a 7-time Pro Bowler, 5 in New England, 2 with the Raiders. This is his 3rd time as a finalist. He was a fourth time as a semifinalist. 3rd team AP, 1st team All-Pro, 2003, 4, and 5. 2nd team twice in 06 and 11. He made it the All-Pro team both as a defensive tackle and a defensive end. He was 5-time 1st team All-Pro with Pro Football Weekly. He's a 3-time Super Bowl champion. He was a 4-time captain in New England on those defenses. And member of the Patriots 50th anniversary team. He got elected to the Patriots Hall of Fame by the fans last year, and he's on the 1st team, NFL's all-decade team of the 2000s, as one of the defensive tackles. The other one, of course, being Warren Sapp. So according to the Pro Football Monitor, they have the Hall of Fame monitor that they have on the Pro Football Reference. that's only a couple years old, but I like it as a way of measuring folks, particularly at position where it's a little bit difficult. He grades out the 11th greatest defensive end ever. He's right behind Jason Taylor, and he's ahead of the three people immediately following him are Howie Long, Chris Stolman, and Dan Hampton, all of whom are Hall of Famers. He's also significantly ahead of Leroy Selman, Charles Haley, Richard Dent, Claude Humphrey, Fred Deem, and Elvin Bethea. And he's way ahead. I mean, like by a factor of 50% of Jared Allen, who's on this ballot with him, who people are talking about as the first ballot Hall of Famer. He also, being on the Patriots, he also played multiple positions. He actually, I don't know guys remember, he used to be the fullback in short yardage situations, particularly on the goal line for the Patriots. He actually got injured and it cost him 4 games one season. He also is a great special teamer. He actually was AFC Special Team Player of the Week twice in his career. He still leads the Patriots in blocked field goals. He has 6 for his career, and that's not counting the one into the 2003 division round game against the MVP Steve McNair-led Tennessee Titans, where he blocked a field goal in that snow game in a game that the Patriots ended up winning 17-14 on the way to the Super Bowl. He played 15 playoff games. He went 12-3 in those playoff games. And that was back at the beginning of the Patriots era. It's hard to remember the beginning of the Patriots dynasty, I guess the first one, because Brady's now become kind of his own meme on everything. I mean, I think the Ringer today had something on a guy who sacked Tom Brady twice in a game and what it meant to his life, which is kind of crazy to me. But those original Patriots teams, those first 3 championships were led primarily by the defense. And the 2 best players on that defense by far are Ty Law, who's already in the Hall of Fame, and Richard Seymour. Seymour started as a tight 5 technique in the base defense. He's 3 technique in a nickel. He's a hard-nosed player, 2-way player against the run and pass. He's on all 3 downs. He doesn't have big sack numbers. He's only like 55, which hurts him a little bit with people who are particularly stack-based. But the Patriots system isn't designed to get people individual stats. And he suffers a little bit because of that. He was also, I mean, he was 6'6", 306. He was absolutely ripped, entirely muscle. He needed to be double teamed on every play. Whenever you played the Patriots, he got double teamed on every play. If you go back, I was back watching Super Bowl 36 highlights the other day to get some Tori Holt and Richard Seymour stuff in at the same time. And every single play, Seymour's in the center and defensive tackle, and he's getting 2 and 3 guys blocking him that entire game. And he still had a batted down pass and 2 sacks and 4 pressures in that game. So he is, by and large, the best defensive lineman on our finalist list. Of the 15 we have to choose from, he's by far better than Jared Allen. It's not a competition to me. And he's been in the final 10 multiple times. I heard from last year he was 6th or 7th on the last ballot. So he was right on the edge of getting in. I think he's going to get in very soon. I'm not sure if it's this year, just because this year has 2 and maybe 3 first ballot Hall of Famers. It's going to be close, but he deserves to be in as one of the best players on one of the best teams of all time, one of the cornerstone players. So.
Okay. All right. So we have Zach Thomas. Tom, what do you got for us?
Hey, so Zach Thomas really was never supposed to be a pro football Hall of Fame linebacker. I mean, he was an undersized 5th round draft choice. And I mean, really his 40-yard dash time was, not that great. And I think maybe that's why it's taken him so long and why he's been forced to wait for his entry into the Hall of Fame. And I really think that's an injustice. A prime example of why is you really need to look no further than Brian Urlacher. He was a 1st-round draft selection, much more appealing measurables, and he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. But if you look at their careers, Thomas was as good, had as good accomplishments for the position. He had more tackles, more forced fumbles. He had the same amount of defensive touchdowns and a similar number of interceptions. And I'm not saying we're not comparing different eras here from players in different eras. Both of them played inside linebacker during the same time and the same number of games. And also, Thomas was voted as the best inside linebacker 5 times, as evidenced by his 5 first-team All-Pros. And I'm not a big fan of going with the voters on All-Pros because a lot of times it's reputation, but they're considered the experts at the time. And he was recognized as great during his playing days. Only 7 non-pass rush type linebackers have more first-team All-Pros and that are in the Hall of Fame right now. And he was voted to the All-Decade team for the 2000s alongside Ray Lewis and Derek Brooks, who are in the Hall of Fame. His achievements at linebacker are as good as many others that are already enshrined. And we're voting on the 5 best players on this official Pro Football Hall of Fame finalist list. And there are 2 other linebackers on there that we've already talked about. But if anyone really is considering them for enshrinement in the Hall of Fame, Thomas was a no-brainer a long time ago because their careers don't hold a candle to his. Mills is a great story. I like the guy, good story. Clay Matthews is almost at the cusp, getting in with a real big push. But the Hall of Fame is reserved for greatness, and players who are great deserve the honor. And they shouldn't, if you're the best, you shouldn't be pushed aside to wait for someone else to get in for other reasons.
Mhm.
So of the 15 official finalists on this list, really, there may be 4 in my mind that had a better career and a more deserving entry into Canton than Zach Thomas. That's really how great his career was. Even though no one expected it. No one expected him to be great, but he really was great. Look at all of his achievements. He really does deserve to be immortalized in next to the other great players, and he really has earned his right to be in the Hall of Fame.
Okay. So we have Reggie Wayne. That is by Dave.
Got it. So Reggie Wayne, I'm going to start with the inevitable discussion point for Reggie Wayne, and that is to put him next to Marvin Harrison. And Kirk alluded to this earlier with the Holt versus Bruce story. And I'm not going to go as far as to say Wayne was better than Harrison, but I'm going to at least put into context the contributions that Wayne made alongside with Harrison and put some statistics together to show you that they're really, really, really close. They both played around 200 games, and similar to Faneca, which I talked about earlier, had a long career with very, very few injuries, which I'll get into in a minute. Their career receptions between Harrison and Wayne are within 32 and the yards within 235. So career numbers accumulated, again, both same number of games, they're both right there. They both benefited from great quarterback play. Let's not fool ourselves with Manning around and then later Oliver Luck for Wayne. But, when Harrison, but Wayne also had to endure that tormentous season of 2011 with Painter and Orlovsky at the helm that actually got them Luck. And he still almost got 1,000 yards in that season. That might be one of the points that you look at and say, this guy is really, really good no matter who's throwing to him when you think about how good those 2 quarterbacks were otherwise. Harrison led the team in receiving 9 times. Wayne led 7. Wayne had a slight edge in yards per catch. And we're talking at worst options 1 and 1A, at best 1A and 1B. They're almost so similar in their career paths. Postseason, Wayne was right there as a key contributor, won 11 games out of 21 total. So, the Colts were always deep in the playoffs. In those playoff games, he had over 1,200 yards and 93 receptions, almost a little over a full season, but solid numbers there, 13.4 yards per catch, which matched his regular season. So in the playoffs, he was right there as well. And he had the big TD reception in the against the Bears, which I don't know why they decided not to cover him on that play. But talking about longevity, look at Faneca, like I discussed earlier. Wayne missed only 1 game after his rookie season, besides the 2013 season, which wiped out his knee. So, but outside of that season, missed only 1 game, and that was in his last season in 2014. So again, a guy you put out there every Sunday. He was out there on the wide receiver position for Manning. One thing that you look for from statistics is the bold numbers, the ones that stand out as the leaders. And he led the league in receiving yards in 2007 with over 1,500 yards, 8 times 1,000 yards with 7 seasons in the top 10 in yards. So again, demonstrating he's one of the best receivers of his era. 4 times in top 10 in receptions, 4 times 100 receptions per year. So again, right there. He registered 6 Pro Bowls and had 1 first-team All-Pro. He was against some stiff competition there, usually Calvin Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, Andre Johnson, Randy Moss, those type guys. He slid in on the second team a couple times as well. So right there among the best in the receivers of his era. My concluding argument here is you look at career placement. And Reggie Wayne is only one of 7 players to be top 10 receptions and yards. So top 10 receptions, yards, he's only 7 guys. He's one of them. The other 6, 5 are in the Hall of Fame. 1 is Larry Fitzgerald, who seems to refuse to quit playing. He'll be in soon. So they're all Hall of Famers. He should be too. For yards, if you look at the 8 behind him, he was 10th in yards. If you look at the 8 behind him, they're either in the Hall, not yet eligible for the Hall, or they're on this ballot like Tori Holt, or they're Henry Ellard, who should have been in a long time ago. So you look behind him, 8 guys, and those guys are getting in. Same with receptions, except instead of Ellard, it's Hines Ward who's not in, and Holt is not there in receptions. He's 20th all time in yards per touch, and tied with Andre Reed, ahead of guys like DeAndre Hopkins, Tim Brown, and Marvin Harrison. These are all big name players. He's right around there in statistics wise. So not only is he good enough to get in, he's really one of the best top 10 receivers of all time and deserves to be among his peers. Please put in Reggie Wayne for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Okay. So one last on the official list. Glenn, you've got Charles Woodson.
Okay, thank you very much. Hall of Fame case for Charles Woodson. So I present Charles Woodson. And in actuality, that should be all it takes to get him in. And we alluded to it earlier. Peyton Manning's #1. We just pushed him all the way through for good reason. Charles Woodson's probably 1A, 1B. 18-year career with the Oakland Raiders and the Green Bay Packers. You look at his Pro Football Reference, Hall of Fame monitor, defensive backs. There are 5 players rated higher than Charles Woodson. All of them are in the Hall of Fame. Of the next 20 players ranked behind him, all but 2, Darrelle Revis and LeRoy Butler, who's in this nominating class, are in the Hall of Fame. Now, on day 1, Charles Woodson comes into the league. He is the Heisman Trophy winner, the first and only defensive player to win that award, beating our unanimous nominee into the Hall of Fame, Peyton Manning. But that's college. We move on to the pros. I, too, am a bullet point person, so I will go through the bullet points. Super Bowl champion, first team All-Pro 4 times, second team All-Pro 4 times, 9-time Pro Bowler, NFL Defensive Player of the Year, NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, 2-time NFL interception leader, NFL 2000s All-Decade Team, and in 2015, his last year in the league, the Art Rooney Award. All time, he is 5th in interceptions with 65. He's 5th in total tackles by defensive back all time. He ranks 6th in tackles for a loss by defensive backs with 54. He's 8th in QB sacks by defensive back with 20. He's 2nd all time in pick sixes by a defensive back with 11, and 5th all time in non-defensive touchdowns with 13. On his release from the Green Bay Packers in 2013, then general manager Ted Thompson, and I quote, stated, "We are grateful for all Charles has given to the Green Bay Packers over the 7 years. He's been an integral part of the Packers' success and our Super Bowl title in 2010. It would not have been possible without his contributions. A once-in-a-generation talent as a player, he's also a great leader and ambassador for the organization off the field. Charles will always be a member of the Packers family, and we look forward to his eventual induction in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We wish him and his family all the best." Now, what's ironic about that statement is, if you remember Charles Woodson going to the Green Bay Packers, one of the things that came up is, well, what's Charles Woodson going to do in Green Bay? Well, he did a lot. He became part of the community and is a Green Bay Packer along with an Oakland Raider. Aaron Rodgers, and I quote, "I think he's the most talented guy that I ever played with. His ability to impact the game was unbelievable. He for sure made me a better player going against him every day in practice. He's one of the most savvy defensive players that I've ever seen on the field. Incredible ability to diagnose routes in real time. Fantastic disguise." So with that, I leave you with future Hall of Famer, Charles Woodson.
Nice. Okay, so we move on to the 4 people who did not who we voted in. Actually, with Willie Anderson, we did not vote him in. It was an oversight that we did one time, but not a second time. So I'm pretty excited to hear the pitch, or our official pitch on Willie Anderson. Ted, you've got Willie Anderson.
You're on mute, my friend.
Ted, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Willie was a right tackle, named to the Pro Bowl 4 straight years from 03 to 06, first team, 3-time first team All Pro from 04 to 06, second team All Pro in 03. Didn't go to the Pro Bowl prior to Marvin Lewis getting to Cincy. I think that's because it was a shit show there beforehand. Willie played 13 years in the NFL. First 12 seasons with the Bengals, 1 final season with Baltimore. We talked about durability before, 116 straight consecutive games from 99 to 07. I know we've talked before about the Bengals being the most underrepresented franchises in Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm going to counter that. It doesn't matter what team you are. They shouldn't focus on pushing a guy through because he's a Bengal. Should put him through because of what he did on the gridiron, period. And for that reason, Anderson should get in. Anderson only gave up 16 sacks in his 13-year career. And again, was widely regarded as the best right tackle of his generation. He committed just 39 penalties during his 13-year career, which breaks down to 3 penalties a season. Pro Football Focus, who does all the advanced analytic scorings, wasn't around for most of his career, except for, I believe, the last 3 years. But Twitter user Joe Goodberry, who is referred by Vance Meek, which many of us follow, notes that if they were around longer, his stats would be better. In his final season, he scored a 91.3 for his Pro Football ranking, which ranked 3rd highest of all tackles. His 10 total pressures ranked 1st or lowest at the time, and lowest for all tackles that played at least 50% of the snaps that year. In 2006, he had a pass blocking efficiency score of 98.9, second best of all tackles, behind only Hall of Famer Jonathan Ogden. In 2006, he gave up just 11 total pressures and 1 sack on 555 pass protection snaps. Pro Football Focus notes that the 11 pressures are the 4th lowest amount in a season since 2006. His weighted AV on Pro Football Reference rank of 101 ranks 19th all time at the tackle position, ahead of Hall of Famers Bob Brown, Ogden, Rayfield Wright, Winston Hill, Dan Deerdorf, Jackie Slater, and future Hall of Famer Joe Thomas, amongst others. He blocked for Corey Dillon for his entire Cincy career, and 6 of 7 years for Dillon. He rushed for over 1,100 yards. Dillon averaged 1,252 yards in his first 6 seasons, running behind Willie. In his final season, he split time with Rudy Johnson. Then Rudy Johnson took over, and he had 3 straight years of 1,300 yards rushing and 12 TDs running behind Anderson. And Willie helped Corey Dillon break 2 NFL records: Jim Brown's rookie single game rushing record and Walter Payton's single game rushing record of 275 yards. Michael Strahan said that Willie Anderson was the best right tackle of his generation. And perhaps I'll leave you with the final stat, perhaps the most compelling most compelling stat for Willie Anderson in his 13-year career. He faced 9 of the top 11 all-time sack leaders. Against those 9 defenders, he only allowed 1 sack, which occurred during his rookie year to Bruce Smith. That is it.
And also, thanks for bringing up Vance Meek. For those who don't follow him. You don't have to be a Bengals fan to really enjoy his material. There's a lot of great stuff there, and I've certainly learned a lot from following him. Another one I've been looking forward to, Steve Tasker by Glenn.
Okay. This is a tough one because it's really hard to put if you're a pure stats guy, Steve Tasker will not get into the Hall of Fame. But yeah, Steve Tasker, special teams ace, special teams godfather, if you will, if we're going to stick with the godfather references in this conference call. Steve, drafted by the Houston Oilers, came to the Buffalo Bills. Houston tried to sneak him by, tried to cut him and then re-sign him. It's already been mentioned in this group about Marv Levy's affection towards special teams and his lineage. So the minute Tasker was out there, he scooped him up. And I guess the rest, as they say, is history. Let's go on to the measurable statistics. He was a 7-time Pro Bowl special teams ace, 7-time first team All-Pro special teamer. And in 1993, he is the only special teams player to win the MVP of that game. Granted, it's an all-star game, but that's still something to be said. Steve Tasker is an eye test Hall of Famer. He is a Hall of Famer based on what the league thought of him back in his playing days. I'm going to quote numerous coaches and players, so bear with me. Bruce DeHaven, special teams coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. What Bruce Smith and Cornelius Bennett mean to us on defense and what Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas mean to us on offense, Steve Tasker means to us on special teams. He can make big plays and it forces the opposition to account for him. We'll see people that will operate in a certain manner for 4 or 5 games and they come in and play against us and change some things because of Steve. He was the first guy I ever saw anybody actually use 3 guys to try and block him as a gunner on a punt. Now, we had alluded to earlier that Calvin Johnson also created triple coverage. Now think about that. On punt teams, you only have 11 men on the field and you're dedicating 3 people to make sure Steve Tasker doesn't get down and cause a fumble or cause a tackle within the 10-yard line or the 5-yard line. That's pretty impressive that coaches are doing that to just prevent him from making that play. He forced people to do things that no one had ever done before on special teams. Bruce DeHaven added, while in his time in Dallas, coaching under Bill Parcells, that he said, I remember Bill talking about whenever we played Buffalo, telling his team, the first thing we have to do is we've got to make sure we contain Steve Tasker, because if we don't get him blocked, then we're going to get beat. Marv Levy on Steve Tasker. As a special teams coach, I had an eye for special teams players. I knew he was a good one. He had leadership and heart. I'm not the only one who could see it. Opposing coaches used to tell me that the player they had to prepare for the most was Steve. Not Jim Kelly, not Bruce Smith, not Andre Reed, but Steve. Marv Levy in the 1995-96 season when Steve Tasker had to fill in for injuries for starting wide receivers. Bills coach Marv Levy was asked the other day if he was surprised by Tasker's production at wide receiver this year. I'll give you a yes and no answer, he said. You've got to be surprised when the guy hasn't done it for 10 years. But no, nothing Steve Tasker does surprises me. He's constantly practiced at wide receiver, and we've liked him there. But there was a time when we also had James Lofton and Don Beebe, and we just felt Steve was making tremendous contributions on our kicking teams. Brad Seeley, special teams coordinator in the league from '89 to 2000, most recently with the Houston Texans. Tasker created a lot of advantages for the Bills just by field position by what he did. So there's a guy who, to me, is extremely worthy of consideration to the Pro Football Hall of Fame because he was a difference maker in the area, and that's what the Hall of Fame is supposed to be about. Jim Kelly, Buffalo Bills Hall of Fame quarterback. Looking back, I wish I could have used him more at wide receiver. But special teams coach Bruce DeHaven said to me, you're messing with my job security now. Leave Steve Tasker where he's at. Because he knew how important Steve was to the special teams unit. And I did too. But I also thought I could use him as a wide receiver because there was not that many people who could cover him one-on-one. Kelly, after the 1996 Miami wildcard game. In my mind, Steve could have been a starter 5 years ago. Kelly told reporters recently, there's not one person who's ever been in our training camp who could cover him. Nobody could cover him one-on-one. I knew when he got the chance, he'd show what he could do. Andre Reed, Bills Hall of Fame wide receiver. Steve wasn't only a great teammate, he was an emotional guy who got us all pumped up. He was a gutsy player and made those plays that we needed certain times of the game to get the crowd in. The offense in it and the defense in it. He was that guy. Former receiver Andre Reed added, his voice raising on the last sentence, even while playing golf on a breezy sunny day in San Diego. He said the thought still got him pumped up and ready to go. He played so low to the ground that it was hard to block him. And when he reached the returner, he'd hit him with everything he had. He made me a better player. He made all of us a lot better players. We saw how hard he worked, and it made us work harder. Bill Brooks, wide receiver in 1996. Steve Tasker runs better routes than anyone else on our team, period. Now, in his wide receiver career, he only was targeted 85 times for 49 receptions, for 760 yards and 9 touchdowns. Now, that's definitely not Hall of Fame receiver career numbers, but he's a special teams ace. Mark Gaughan, a sports writer for the Buffalo News for the past 32 years, was in the room for those discussions during the 12 years he sat on the Hall of Fame selection committee. Tasker's thought of very highly among voting members. He's widely recognized as the best special teams player, coverage man ever. And there are a lot of people on the committee who would like to see him make the final 15, so there could be a real discussion about his merits. But from 2000 to 2013, the Bills had a string of candidates you couldn't put Tasker in ahead of. It's hard to get into the Hall of Fame, as it should be, but we may never see someone like Tasker again. There's less opportunity to dominate as he was in both punt and kickoff coverage with the way the NFL is changing. Ever since he's retired, there hasn't been a special teams player of his caliber or that he had a career in special teams like that. That could help him down the road as a senior candidate. Now this next quote just galls me to have to utter, but I'm going to do it anyway. Matthew Slater, New England Patriots special teams and wide receiver. To me, you can't tell the history of 100 years of the NFL without saying the name Steve Tasker. If he hadn't done his role at such a high level, I'm not sure guys like me would have a job. He goes on, I think that if you want to start having those conversations, they need to be had with the name Steve Tasker, because I think he paved the way for us to play the game. Do I think Steve deserves a place there? Yes, absolutely. I think Steve Tasker is being the godfather of special teams, and there were a lot of great ones, and did it certainly around his era. You can talk about Bill Bates and others, but I think he set the standard so high, the bar so high, that I think coaches, when they started to build their teams, realized, hey, this is an important part of the game. And I'll just leave you with Peter King's comment in a recent tweet. Take his opinion for what it is. He feels strongly that there are 2 special teamers that deserve to have their case heard for Canton, Steve Tasker and Brian Mitchell. And with that, I relieve my time.
You did a good job.
Nice. All right,
Me too.
Evan, you got Kevin
One more
Williams.
All right. So coming into this, I did not expect to be the Kevin Williams stan, but here I am. And I'm such a Kevin Williams guy. It messed up my defense of Seymour originally. But I'm gonna say this. No one in this entire process has been more overlooked than Kevin Williams. He didn't even make the semi-finalist list, which is insane. Out of the 106 players who are nominated for the Hall of Fame, again, using the monitor system that the Pro Football Reference is using, here's the list of on their system, an average Hall of Famer is 100 score. The only people over 100 are Peyton Manning, Alan Faneca, Charles Woodson, Zach Thomas, Reggie Wayne, Patrick Willis, who we'll talk about in a second, Tori Holt, and Kevin Williams. Kevin Williams is by that number, the 8th best player out of the 106, and he couldn't make the top 25. I don't know if anything's going to happen. Again, I'm a Patriots fan, and I have no skin in the game as to whether Kevin Williams makes it or not. But if anyone paying attention to this at all listens, get Kevin Williams at least on the semifinalist ballot. It's insane he's not there. He's currently the 10th best defensive tackle of all time, according to that same thing. He was 9th when we started this, but the guy who passed him this year, just to show you where he is in the annals of this, was Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald was originally behind him coming into the season, and with the season he had, just passed him in the ranking system. He's ahead of Cortez Kennedy. He's ahead of Henry Jordan, Alex Karras, Buck Buchanan. I mean, we talk about other potential Hall of Famers at that position: Geno Atkins, Ndamukong Suh, Fletcher Cox. All three of them are a factor of like 25% worse on that than Kevin Williams was. So Williams had 13-year career, 11 with the Vikings, 1 with the Seahawks, where he should have won a Super Bowl if Pete Carroll had run the ball. And 1 with the Saints. He was a 6-time Pro Bowler, 5 times All-Pro, first for AP, 5 times Pro Football Weekly All-Pro, including 4 times in a row from 2006 to 2009. He was Defensive Player of the Week. He was the Defensive Rookie of the Month, his first month in the NFL. He's a member of the Vikings 50th anniversary team, and he's a member of the NFL's 2000s All-Decade second team. Now, we talked about the first team being Sapp and Seymour. Both guys in the second team haven't gotten nearly enough thought. It's Williams and LeRoy Glover, another great guy. So more than anything, he was half of the Williams wall. And during his career, he was selected more All-Pro teams than Warren Sapp, Cortez Kennedy, or Joe Green. In addition to his All-Pro selections, he was a fixture in the Vikings defense for a number of years. And the Vikings defense, but with that Williams wall, was the best run defense in the league for 3 consecutive years, from 2006 to 2008. They were number 1 in the entire league during that time period, which is incredible. To be 2 years in a row is ridiculous, but 3 is insane. Kevin Williams deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He deserves to be a finalist. He deserves to be at least a semifinalist. There's absolutely no reason why he's this far down. And again, we're biased because these are our people, and we've talked this through. And it's amazing with the great job that Tom did. We didn't get Tom Nalen here, but Kevin Williams is a Hall of Famer. I just don't know what it's going to take for them to realize it. I guess Seymour's going to have to get in first, and then once they have the first team, maybe they'll start looking at those next guys. But Kevin Williams should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Okay, so we have one
done.
final presentation. Paul, you've got Patrick Willis.
Yeah, and in the interest of time, I'll try to be kind of quick here. And yes, I have another short career candidate to present to the group here. But I think we need to, again, look at the quality of this career. It is actually quite astounding when you look at what Patrick Willis was able to achieve in a career that was just over 7 years. A foot injury, finished his career very, very early. He was drafted 11th overall in the first round by the 49ers in 2007. He became Defensive Rookie of the Year, led the league in total and combined sacks, made the Pro Bowl and first team All-Pro as a rookie, as an inside middle linebacker. That's quite an accomplishment. But he would then go on to actually make first or second team All-Pro for the next 6 seasons, including 5 seasons, including 4 times as first team. So there's a consistency of quality of performance there that really can't be dismissed. He actually made the Pro Bowl all of his career except for that last year in 2014 when he only played 6 games and ended his career. This is his second year on the ballot. Again, we're looking at a short career candidate, and I'm not about to make the hall full of short careers. And the voters haven't shown interest yet. Second year in the ballot, he's not been a finalist by the voters. And that's gotten some just debate going on about that. You have a guy here who's key to the resurgence of the Niners at that phase in the late 2000s, early 2010 period. If you look at PFR, or the Hall of Fame monitor, he currently 6'8" overall for middle inside linebackers in terms of their rating. 5 guys above him are in the Hall. Actually, the one guy who's right above him is actually Zach Thomas, and I suspect that that's part of the challenge that Willis is facing in terms of his candidacy. Is it's likely that the voters are queuing up these linebackers, and I would not be surprised. I don't think this year he's going to make the kind of movement. Well, he won't because he wasn't in finalist, but I think in the future, Thomas moving off the ballot, getting elected, which I think is likely in the next few years, will open up the discussion for Patrick Willis. This is a guy who had a solid career, led the league in combined or total sacks twice, was in the top 5 of those stats a number of times in his career. He was a leader of that defense, a guy who could play hard-nosed guy all over the field. And I just think that, his career needs a little bit more, I think, appreciation. And again, I don't want to belabor the point, but yeah, the shorter career is really what I think has hurt his case to date. I think moving forward in the future years, hopefully this group and others like us continue to advocate for him, because I think the voters really need to start looking at a case for Patrick Willis for eventual election in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. His career was that great, even though it was short. Thanks.
Okay, so at this point, I guess it's a minor break. What I'm going to ask all of you to do is over Twitter, just DM me on the not in Hall of Fame list, the 6 people who you would eliminate, and on the official list, 5. And then we're going to just shave this down to 10 on each. Sound good? Also allows me to get us some beer.
It was the 6 on the official list?
No, 6 on the not in Hall of Fame list.
And then 5 on the other.
And then 5 on the official.
Okay.
So everyone's eliminating 5. And then if we've got a tiebreaker, then we'll tell everyone who that is, and then we'll do the same thing. I think this way, because I know that we've sort of done this open in the past, but this way it sort of eliminates the possibility of influencing each other. I don't think that's what we've ever done, but yeah, let's try it this way. See how it goes.
So just in the public one, or do you want us to?
Just send it right to all of you. Have me directly. So just send that. Beer break for everyone. Talk amongst yourselves. What's that bit with Linda Richmond, Mike Myers? I'm old. Vinny, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but.
Coffee talk.
Thank you.
Coffee talk.
Beer talk for me. That's what Canadians do.
The progressive era was neither progressive nor an era. Discuss.
Love it.
Or a Voya commercial.
Okay, what do we got? None of you yet.
Yeah, this is hard, man. So people are like, I'm not going to vote for them. People made some really good cases. So,
I mean, I may joke about saying how, I like to mock and say that, their job's so hard. I know their job's hard. I mean, I think everyone knows their job's hard.
Still working, right? I'm still working on this.
Yeah. Camera was off. I didn't know that you left.
What's that?
The camera was off. I didn't know if you were still there.
Oh, me?
Yes.
I've been doing laundry and dishes and stuff.
Hopefully
And
you had
listening,
headphones on.
but well, no, I just carried it out and had it open. Don't worry, I'm listening to everyone's excellent arguments. Don't worry.
Your case for Calvin was amazing, by the way.
Thanks, buddy.
I'm going to remove Peyton Manning, JK.
It's all about Godfather 2, Vinny.
Thank God no one mentioned.
Not to bring up the Godfather 3.
Oh, you just.
I noticed that. I was waiting for that.
I was wondering
Sophia
if
Coppola did end up being a great director, though.
She did.
Hey,
Yes.
has anybody watched that Godfather 3 like recut?
No, is
I
it any
can't
good?
imagine it's that much. I don't know. I haven't seen it. Like, so Coppola always said that he wanted to name that picture The Death of Michael Corleone, and that he thought it suffered virtue of being called Godfather 3 because he considered it to be a different type of movie telling a different type of story, blah, 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 blah. It had a lot of fucking, down points.
Who decided against it? Was it the producers? Was it Paramount? Who said it? That said it should be called Godfather 3.
I suspect it would have been the studio, but I don't know. I haven't read that.
I gotta ask my friend Pat. He might know. These guys don't know who.
Okay, so
Maybe
for those, some of you have already put some in. It's got to be 6 from one, 5 from the other, so not combined.
Right. 5
So-
from the official list.
6 from the
And then right.
Yeah.
There can be overlap, but it's got to be
Absolutely.
5 from the official list, 6.
Yes.
Yep. Well, I'm just gonna eliminate the 4th and 5th best Buccaneers of the 2002 champion.
Okay, so
hey,
I
no.
stunk at this, but all right.
No.
Don't
splash-
forget.
Oh, sorry. I'm not
Don't forget
doing that.
Don't forget the 56 in the future. And don't forget Monty Kiffin. Monty Kiffin. Don't forget the name.
Yes.
Love
Mine's
my
not on the ballot,
assistants.
so we don't have to worry about that.
Sorry about
Don't-
that, guys.
Love my assistant coaches. They just finished the Virgin official list. Now let's go with the Chad Mountain Hall.
As usual, our list was harder to eliminate than the other list.
I'm having a lot of trouble. I'm stuck on 5 right now. I'm having a lot of trouble here.
Yeah, I sat there forever, and I people crossed out multiple times, and I finally just pushed.
Yeah. Ah, Jesus. Wait, who made the Zach Thomas argument?
Tom.
I did.
You did, right, Tom?
Yeah.
Tom.
Tom's a convincing fellow.
Tom.
I kind of find it funny. You have Tom Nalen and Zach Thomas. So
Yeah.
Oh.
It's funny. I mean, I'm passionate about Tom Nalen, like passionate about I've of all the research I've done, like he is one of the most overlooked centers of all time, in my opinion.
Well,
I don't have any allegiance to
that is a
Thomas.
fact, not an opinion. That is a fact. We established here that he is the greatest center to ever play.
He should be in the conversation for at least the most technically sound center of all time, but he's in the top, and I'm disappointed that he's not on this list because I would have had a lot of fun arguing for him. But Zach Thomas is just, I have no allegiance to the Miami Dolphins. I just when I look at him, look at his career, I played inside linebacker. He was probably the most instinctive linebacker, I would say, of all time. Like, he has no physical abilities that are superior to anybody else, but he got the job done far better than most. With
When
his
you talk
limited
about his measurables like speed and things like that, he made up for that by knowing where the play was going to go. And
Yep.
he overlapped me in college. I went to the University of Texas at Austin, and we played against Tech all the time. And that was just, the guy just wrecked, Ricky Williams, all those guys. He would know where they're going to be before they were there.
Yeah.
And, he'd throw his body at Ricky Williams' legs. It would work out sometimes, but
Right.
not other times.
Yeah. It's funny, Carl Mecklenburg has said a couple times that he always tried to take the first step in the right direction. In career and life, he's a motivational speaker now, but it's really true. Like, people that are limited in physical abilities, but if they're taking the first step before anybody else in the right direction, they're going to win, even if they're a little bit slower. And that's what Zach Thomas did. Really.
As a Patriots fan, I always thought Zach Thomas was more of a problem than Jason Taylor was.
Yeah.
Dad's favorite Dolphin.
Yeah, it's so funny because, like, really, he's wasn't supposed to be in this conversation. Like,
But he is, and that's all that matters. Don't
Yeah,
forget, he's also
yeah.
two-time NFL alumni linebacker of the year. That's another honor you could also put on his resume.
yeah, I don't know. I like I said before, I'm not a big big fan of people voting. Like, it's their opinion, you know, they're supposed to be experts, but like I look at 1998, and this is back to Tom Nealon, like 1998, they gave it to Dermody Dawson. If you look what happened in 1998, how the hell does anybody not put Tom Nealon as all pro? I mean, like Bettis got 1,100 yards that year, and they had like the 28th ranked offense. And you had a 2,000-yard rusher and a Super Bowl winner, one of the greatest playoff runs for a running back of all time. And he doesn't even get, second team all pro. It's like his all reputation. So I don't love the all pros, and I don't love like the voters' opinions. I think it's a self kind of fulfilling prophecy. They just keep putting them on lists and like, see how great they are. We voted them a bunch of times. But, you know, some of the time, if it's overwhelming, like 5 first team all pros, you know, they've done something pretty damn good.
Kirk, how many people we got left?
And like just finding that last guy to like put on the hour list is pretty.
2 more.
Well, like I said, I think of their list, I got 13 of those guys being Hall of Famers. So I cut 3 people I think are Hall of Famers. Our list, we got 15 people I think are Hall of Famers.
Right.
So,
So this clearly I'm terrible at asking people to vote my way.
Yeah. You know what I really hated about the list that came out from the Pro Football Hall of Fame is they had people on there that I would have eliminated a long time ago. Like as they go down, like the list, like when they had Hines Ward on it, like why in the hell are you putting Hines Ward on there? Like I love our list so much better, you know. It's like it's harder for me to take people off our list than it is the official list. Which
Tom, who do you think was better, Hines Ward or Lynn Swan?
Well, I'll tell you, and I've said this before, and this was my argument with Tom Nealon. I guess there's a couple groups. There's people that are no-brainers for Hall of Fame. And then there's people that are kind of on the cusp, but there's something remarkable about their career that puts them over the edge. And Lynn Swan, average, I would say stats, nothing extraordinary. He's on every highlight reel for pass catching. Won 4 Super Bowls. You know, like those are remarkable events that people remember. So I'm not upset that he's in the Hall of Fame, but he's a better candidate to me than Hines Ward because he was.
And that was a completely different era for passing.
Completely different era. Hines Ward wasn't. I mean, I don't think I don't think Lynn Swan was the best receiver even on his team. Like John Starr was a better receiver, but if you do something remarkable and you're still pretty good at what you do, it gives you the edge. Hines Ward I can't think of anything remarkable about his career.
I can tell you one. You want me to tell you as to why he's actually, funny enough, I know that everyone talks about, you know, Stallworth, Swan, and Pearson, and Carmichael, and even Branch, who should be in. The guy that I always saw myself, I've always used as the best receiver of the 70s, was hands down, without even question, was always Harold Jackson, actually. Harold Jackson, when he retired, he was like second all time in receiving yards. And when in the 70s, he had more receptions, more yards, and more touchdowns than any other receiver during that time, yet he didn't make the all-decade because he didn't play in the NFC East or for the Steelers.
Yeah.
No, actually, take that back. He did play for the NFC East for the Eagles, but he's just, I guess, probably because what Carmichael did was a little bit different. I guess because also Pearson for his runs too. Like Jackson is such an underrated player, and don't forget, if Vinny Sheehan, if you're watching, he's also the guy that was traded for Roman Gabriel for the Rams, for the Eagles.
Yeah, I will say, and I am on record saying this, Kirk will say, Hines Ward is my least favorite athlete.
Well, I mean, I don't want to take anything away from Hines Ward. He's a good player, but as a wide receiver, he did nothing extraordinary that any other receiver did, really. He was a good blocker, and he was the MVP of the Super Bowl, but I mean, I don't know why he made the list, like over other people like Kevin Williams, who was probably the best at his position for like 4 years straight.
Or Henry Eller, just at his position.
Oh, Henry Eller, that's a guy that the clock's ticking on him. It's like it's only like 2 years left or 3 years left of eligibility for him. I mean, and you're really going to waste. I'm not trying to hate on Hines Ward here, but at the same time, like, he's been in the semifinalist purgatory again and again. It's like, at some point in time, might as well just like give someone else in there a shot, because there's many other guys that more people want to see in that aren't getting the time of day because you have Hines Ward there. Again, I'm not trying to take anything away from Hines Ward, but at the same time, you might be argued that Chad Johnson was probably the best receiver in his division. I'm not advocating for Chad Johnson.
The Hall really did a disservice to the receivers from the 70s for decades. I mean, it actually took Bo Swan and Stallworth a long time on the ballot to get in. And then when you start getting receivers pouring up the numbers they did in the 90s and beyond, they just sort of got lost in the shuffle. Yeah. And a guy like Hines Ward, I think as you look in the next few years, and as his career is going to be look a lot different to the voters, because his numbers just aren't going to look as good as they did when he retired, because there's so many of those players becoming eligible that have those kind of numbers. And the flip side is the guys from the 70s that Vinny's pointing out are getting screwed. And the problem is that the voters just didn't elect them when they should have back in the 80s and 90s to clear that part of the ballot out. And these guys are just being forgotten, and then they fall into the seniors pool and like, forget it, dude. Your chances of getting out are
Swan, wasn't Swan like a 14-time finalist or something? And he was like a finalist.
He was a 14-time finalist. Now, I know a lot of people on Twitter are kind of mixed on Lynn Swan, but listen, if Lynn Swan was currently not in the Hall of Fame, I guarantee you he'd probably be one of the most requested guys, if not the most requested guy, because he was basically like Jerry Kramer.
We have some eliminations.
Yes.
Hold on, let me get my bourbon ready for this. I'm not gonna like
Lionel Taylor.
Okay.
Let's not forget.
I don't think I'm gonna edit this part out. I think just this whole discussion actually was pretty good. So I'm just going to, and everyone can see this wonderful graphics that I've got, right?
They are wonderful.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Can you star wipe them out?
I had the best technicians in Barbados work on this.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are they frogs?
No, it's Rihanna and Eugene Melnick's 18 wives.
Okay.
Oh, you don't get the joke. Eugene Melnick has Eugene Melnick, the owner of the Ottawa Senators, has a house in Barbados.
Must be next to mine.
Where's some fauna in Barbados?
Jeez.
Right. So
what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bold out those who are out. Sound good?
Yep.
All right.
Sounds good to me.
What?
Out. This one broke me a bit. I did not vote for it.
People.
Willie Anderson is out.
Oh, that hurts.
What?
You know. All right. Well, if it's any consolation, I apparently suck because I was super passionate about this one. So fuck you all.
Just business. It's just business.
Yeah.
This is now not.
Also, this one hurts me too.
No.
Yes.
We need to know. We need some names.
What?
Very sad. Very sad.
You all suck.
Who did it?
I hate everybody.
Don't worry, I didn't vote out Tasker.
I know you didn't, Vinny. I know Jack didn't either.
All right, so yeah, those are the 6 eliminated here.
Wow.
Wow.
I'm surprised about Patrick Willis.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Patrick
And
Willis
Willis.
too.
Allen's out. I'm all right. Well,
who's your other guy?
I wasted so much time telling you how much I hated Ronde Barber and loved him when he quit. But
you did Holt. At least Holt.
That's tough. There are good defensive backs on this list.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. I legitimately went position by position.
This one apparently was unanimous, including the guy who represented it.
Yeah.
It's like the other 19 times before he's been nominated.
Come on, let's be real here. He's the weakest guy on here. Let's be honest here.
Sorry, Jen.
He's only here because Jen wanted to push hard.
I'm just glad that I don't have to go into a spiel about why he shouldn't be elected to the Hall of Fame.
And just because everything gets weird, we've got one on one side and one on the other.
Problems with you people.
Oh, wow.
What?
That's odd.
That is weird.
That's because our list is better than theirs, obviously.
So this is the part where we open up the floor. We have some eliminations that are clearly unanimous. We have some people who are doing particularly well. Do we want to do a late minute push for anyone, or just say like somebody does not belong? Evan, clearly you've done a great job with Seymour, who we did not even put in ours, and look, he's still there.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that once Mills went, I thought Seymour was next, but Wayne made it. So
Yeah, which I mean just shows how interesting this is. I can say that there was no tiebreaker. Well, obviously there's no tiebreakers. I would have put that through. There have been a couple who received no votes. I won't say who. You can probably guess who at this point. So do we want to open up a floor for people who we think should not stay? Like one of these things is not like the other. One of these things does not belong. These are for those with kids.
No,
I've got an exercise.
I was just going to add that at this point, again, we're down to 15. Most years, the final 15 guys, almost every time they get in eventually. So almost all these guys are Hall of Famers. It's just what pecking order do you root for the guys that are first ballot, or get guys in that have been waiting a while? That's what it comes down to.
I've got an idea.
Sure.
I've got an idea. How about the people who presented any of these people? DM, just the same way that we voted. DM Kirk. One fact. Give us your top. Make the case in one fact. What's the top thing that you could say about a person? The one thing. It can be anything. It can be a stat. It can be how you feel. The one thing. And then Kirk will read them, and we'll see how that sounds.
All right, so I'll just sort of give an example then of that, just because I've still got Tori Holt left. Most yards in a decade, receiving yards in a decade. Period.
Okay, there you go.
That is, and I've already said it. You know what? We'll keep it at that. Jack. I like the way you're thinking, Jack. Just that's my hard fact. Most receiving yards in a decade, in a receiving era.
Why don't we just go around the room?
Just say it instead of.
yeah, let's just go around the room instead of DMing it. So
Okay. Tony
All
Boselli.
right, I got one for Calvin Johnson.
Go ahead.
No, it's got to be the guy you.
Alec didn't present one.
All right, most consecutive 100-yard receiving games, 8 in a row. 1,964 receiving yards in a season.
That's a record.
Broke Jerry Rice's single season record of 1,848 receiving yards and finished the 2012 season with 1,964 yards, an average of almost 123 yards per game. In the same game against the Atlanta Falcons, Johnson set that record, 100-yard games, which would later be tied by Adam Thielen, in consecutive games with 10 or more receptions. He tied Michael Irving's record for most 100-yard games in a season with 11.
I was at that game.
Oh yeah.
nice.
Yep.
Damn.
And he wasn't born yet. Sorry.
My son is a big. My son's
got underwear
my
older
son's
than
name is
Vinny.
Matt. He's a big Atlanta Falcons. My son Matt is a big Falcons fan, so we went to that game in Detroit.
Right.
Nice.
So who's did Boselli?
I did Boselli. I think the strongest case you can make is he was selected All Pro 3 times over 3 Hall of Famers: Louis Roth, Jonathan Ogden, and Orlando Pace. That is impressive.
Yeah. All right. LeRoy Butler.
Best safety in the league 3 years in a row.
Okay. Tori, I've already done. Calvin Johnson was already done.
No,
John
I
Lynch.
want to take. I want to take Calvin.
Please, Jack.
I want
Go.
to take Calvin. Calvin Johnson. I looked at him and I said, no one could possibly play this position any better.
You missed Alan Faneca, by the way.
Oh, sorry. Alan Faneca. Thank you.
Yeah, Alan Faneca, all decade team 2000s, the only guard or tackle on the first or second team all decade, not in the Hall of Fame.
John Lynch.
The conscience of the legendary Tampa 2 defense.
Okay. Richard Seymour.
Best defender on a defense that won 3 out of 4 Super Bowls.
Okay. Zach Thomas.
Voted one of the best inside linebackers for a decade while playing with the likes of Derek Brooks, Junior Seau, Ray Lewis, and Brian Urlacher.
Okay. And Reggie Wayne.
Reggie Wayne, top 10 receiving yards, top 10 receptions. Everybody else is in the Hall of Fame at this time.
All right. And Charles Woodson. Glenn.
He's the GOAT.
No brainer.
I mean, seriously.
His name is Charles Woodson. That is all.
I
you
got
need.
something. I got a compliment for Boselli, if that's all right with you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
The Magellan of the offensive tackle position
Okay.
made an impact in such a short time.
Oh, okay.
All right.
You could also
Okay.
say Mr. Jaguar. You could basically
Yeah,
say
he is
was-
Mr. Jaguar. I always thought of him as Mr. Jaguar.
I saw him as the Leroy Selman of Northern Florida.
Greatest
I
Houston
think
Texans
Vinny
pick
wins
ever.
Vinny wins the conversation with that one. That's awesome. Well done, buddy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, let's
definitely
just
have-
hope Boselli does not suffer the same fate as Magellan did.
As long as he stays out of the Philippines, he should be fine. But I really think that Vinny's quote should be, and when Boselli gets in on his
No, exactly.
on the bus there.
And actually
guys.
staying out of the Philippines is might be on my headstone, but that's another story.
Also,
for another
guys,
time.
big news. Robert Saleh was just hired as the coach of the New York Jets.
Who's that?
Oh wow.
I'm excited, but I'm also kind of optimistic about Urban Meyer, man.
I'm sorry. Who was that? Vinny, I missed
Yeah,
that completely.
$12 million a year. Make sure he doesn't abruptly retire
defensive
again.
coordinator for the Niners.
49ers.
Okay. All right. So this one's going pretty quickly. So why don't we just eliminate three?
From each side?
Three from each side.
Oh
Yeah,
boy.
because we're even now.
Jesus Christ.
I got the back of my piece of paper here. It started with the front part. Run out of notes.
Vinny, that was like the best line ever. I'm gonna steal that in some point when I'm writing, if you don't mind.
You should. He was the very first draft pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars in the same way that Leroy Selman was the
No,
first ever draft pick.
I just love that. It was like I'm love metaphors, so that's perfect.
Oh, yeah, it's perfect. I mean, I'm not going to grant you can't exactly say the same thing for Kerry Collins for the Panthers or David Carr for
There's
the.
a lot of things we could say about Kerry Collins, which we're not going to say right now.
Notice my work with the eyebrows there. That's all you need to know, kids. What am I saying? I'm 21. Everyone else is my senior. Even Alec.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we're all
About a
old.
few months older than you.
Yeah, I had my 21st anniversary, my 25th birthday last week. So
You look like you still look like you're in your 20s there, Evan.
yeah, thank you. It's the lighting.
For me, it's the extra eating. Natural Botox is fat. I'm telling you, it works great.
That Ringo Starr diet or whatever he's doing. Straight up, look up. He's 80, I can't believe Ringo Starr is 80 years old and he looks like he's like 40 something. It's unbelievable.
Mike LaFleur is the new OC of the JETS. Sucks.
I just saw a tweet.
This just got tough.
Texans fan here. It said Texans once had Kyle Shanahan, Robert Salah, and Matt LaFleur on their staff, and he ended up with Bill O'Brien.
49ers will receive a third round compensatory pick in
Yeah.
each of the next two drafts.
Yeah, that's a new thing they put in November. So if you develop people within your organization who are of a minority candidates who get hired by other teams, you get third round draft picks. So the Rams are getting 2, and now the Niners are getting 2.
Good job. Also, as we all know, there's
I
also
like the add-ons as opposed to the takeaways.
also don't forget that there's also a senior, Pearson, contributor, my specialty, Nunn, and of course Coach Flores, who is the star of his own Coors Light commercials.
Those are awesome.
Weird
I
and
love it.
awesome.
He looks
Bill-
really old sitting in that chair.
But he still looks like a badass, man. Like and if Phil Jr., if you're watching this, he is definitely going to make it. And congratulations to you, man. And hopefully with Flores in, Buddy Parker might be next.
I think it's probably Coryell next, but Buddy.
I think so too. And I have no issue with Coryell, but I'm just saying, Parker's basically like, instead of continuing on a dynasty and changing the game for an entire ethnicity, Buddy Parker created a dynasty and changed the game for an entire occupation. That's basically what Buddy Parker did. No, and for Bill Nunn, like, come on, that guy, I was shocked that he wasn't part of the Centennial slate. And granted, I was even more shocked that Ralph Hay wasn't inducted last time. But at the same time, next year coming up, Art McNally's 95 years old, guys. And, I've been on record saying this until they finally start giving blazers and rings to the deceased. You better get him in before the guy croaks, and I don't want to see that happen to poor McNally. I mean,
Did you just say lasers? Did you just say giving people lasers?
No, I said blazers, the jackets.
Okay, got it.
I mean, and come on, K Jewelers and Hager khakis, they're going to be fine. I mean, it can't hurt to just.
Vinny's the next generation. I don't know what they're doing now. They're giving out lasers.
Yeah, sounds about right.
I mean, they might give out lasers, and hey, for all we know, we might go to K Jewelers and say, hey, you better make.
Art McNally was a Marine corporal during World War II.
Yes, he was. He was a Marine corporal. Also, I've been communicating with Football Zebras. In case you guys don't know who Football Zebras are, they're basically like the online forum where all the officials congregate to. Man, it makes me just want to see more referees making, which sounds kind of weird. But then again,
who's the only technically referee in the hall?
Hugh Shorty Ray is the closest thing we have back in 1966, and he was more of like an advisory compared to the officials. But we need to have way more than. I mean, baseball has like 10, hockey has 16, basketball has 16, and football only has like 1 barely. Like, come on, we need way more than that. I mean, the officials get pounded by fans and by coaches and by the media day after day, and they get nothing in return. Come on, let's give it a helping hand. Why not?
Everyone's got theirs in right now, I think.
Yes. Oh, wait. We just choose 3?
3 of each.
Okay, I've almost done with that.
No, I don't think Ed Hockley would get pounded by anybody.
Ed Hockley scares the hell out of me.
And yes, there are penalties in the Pro Bowl, just saying.
Until they dilute it like the Basketball Hall of Fame and the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, I don't think we should put officials in. But that's just me. There's too many deserving players that haven't been in to make way for officials in the NFL.
I was gonna say, what a shit show we're gonna do when we actually do the basketball one.
Oh, that's gonna be fun.
You know what? What's interesting is what's so interesting. Cal Hubbard, one of the pioneers, is the only person both in Cooperstown and Canton. He, of course, is probably the pioneer of the linebacker position. He would go on to become an AL umpire, and he would go into the Hall of Fame as an umpire. So I think that's very, speaking of which, so technically there is, in a way, an umpire that is connected to Canton.
Perfect.
Everyone's got theirs in. I just have to put in mine.
Almost. I'm putting in mine right now.
Okay.
I know that there might be some consideration to not have any of us, but at the same time, like 0 officials, like football has none. Like it just kind of feels kind of weird. They're very.
But it's gonna have Bill Nunn.
No, yeah, but at the same time,
okay.
I'd say,
Evan, thank you.
I can think of like 10 officials off the top of my head that I think deserve at least a little bit. Like Burl Toller, like he was a pioneer for for all officials. Like he was the very first minority, and he was a very successful guy. Like I don't know, like officials do deserve some credit. I mean, all the other halls have it. Why can't football? You might as well, especially because they're the most vilified. And I said, let's get a
Was it
little.
because they're still considered part-time employees?
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry, who said they didn't put theirs in yet?
Me. I'm still in the process. This is pretty tough for me.
Okay. Well, you're gonna be you might be a tiebreaker.
Yeah, it's all in the balance of my fingers.
That Bill Nunn line, please save that for the podcast, man. Don't waste it.
Which you too can be on the Hall of Fame podcast. Just ask. on Spotify and iTunes.
There we go.
We haven't taken off of them like Trump yet. So just make sure you go there.
Let politics out. No politics.
Oh, God. It's funny. Every week, Evan and I say we're not going to talk politics and race and sports, and then we always do because there's always something.
You could argue that everything in life is politics. Like this pen in
Wow.
my hand has a political background to
Vinny,
it.
stop.
Danny, just stop talking and put it in.
Put your
No, too easy.
freaking
Stop talking and put it in.
for Christ's sake.
A prostitute say that to me once. That's why I'm not allowed back in the Philippines.
Exactly.
Boy.
Allowed back. What happened?
That was the most unintentional. That's what she said of all time. I'm sorry.
Yes, it was.
Oh, what do we got? Oh, Vinny.
I either need more or less to drink. I haven't decided which.
More.
Your
It's
choice.
always more.
I just finished my my Woodford there, so I need some more if we're getting to the finals here.
All right.
I'll be right back.
I will go with. Okay, just put them in, guys. Lovely drapes you got back there, Evan.
Okay. I'll wait till 11 gets back before we bold everything out.
Baseball's on the 19th, right?
Yeah, baseball's on the 19th.
C.
All right, so Ted, I know I got to send you sort of like that information. Is there anyone else who wants to be part of the baseball thing that isn't already?
I would just say that when I send over my football cuts in the email, I had put my baseball
Okay.
votes.
Yeah, I think we're going to alter it just a little bit. We're just going to have an open discussion
All right.
and just sort of like run with that.
When baseball comes out, I can't wait to crap on Bill James because I crapped on Bill James's take on Andrew Jones, and I said, "Damn, this take is freezing cold."
Might have fallen.
I saw that. That was good.
Okay, so we've got a tie on one. So let's just get right to that. So on the not in Hall of Fame list, as not a big shock, Reggie Wayne's out.
Son of a.
John Lynch is out.
Should we italicize?
John
Yep.
Lynch.
Should we italicize it to mention that they were cut in the round of like 10?
What's that? Well, we're mentioning it now.
Should we have them italicized to let them know which was done from the round of
They're
15?
knowing
Oh,
it,
it's
Vinny.
italic?
It's
Yeah,
recorded.
Brendan
They're seeing it.
or-
Fine.
Oh, that makes sense.
All right, yeah, that's fine. All right, you people.
And we have a tie here between Tori Holt and Tony Boselli.
Oh, wow.
That's tough. Two great Jaguars.
So everybody, everybody send you the one cut
It's
there.
just like,
Yeah, let's just do that right now before we go to the next one. So we're cutting either Boselli or Holt.
So send you the cut, right?
Yeah.
well, but, all
I
right.
will put in
So
front of it, cut, so that you don't.
it's easy. I voted for one and not the other. So
The
So should
same
we just
name
put in
I-
like? So we
Just
just
one.
put in whatever we want, like
Yeah,
just
just either Holt or Boselli.
who we want to keep or who we want to take out.
Take out.
I keep putting
What are we
them
doing?
in.
We have to remove one of those guys?
Yeah.
God damn it. I hate this game.
This the
All
game
right,
was
well.
rigged all along.
yeah.
I'll take it up with the people later.
This.
Okay. If you haven't already put it in, doesn't matter. It's already decided.
Who is it?
Tori Holt's out.
Oh, wow.
Pretty much a landslide almost.
Almost.
Yeah.
Almost.
I tried. So
Don't worry,
big shock
it's okay.
here. Tori Holt's out here.
Yeah, Kirk, you better put Tori Holt in italics.
Oh, my bad.
Or we'll We'll
Now
never
we've
know.
Be confused for the rest
eliminated
of my
all
life.
of our,
And the next one's, Kirk, you have to bold, put in italics, and underline. Okay.
There you
Yes.
go.
we've eliminated all of the people we brought over from our list. So we're basically just operating.
I
on
figured Seymour was done. I'm impressed. He made it
Alex.
out of 10.
And bold.
I was convinced on Seymour. I had him on, I never voted for him up until now, but the argument today was
Hey,
good.
I'll say this now because it's going to come up. Next year is only DeMarcus Ware as the first ballot. Like there's going to be I think there's going to, my personal opinion on this, there's going to be 3 first ballots, an offensive lineman and 1 open spot, which may go to the other offensive lineman. But like mostly a bunch of these guys are getting in next year, like including
So-
Tasker. It's a really good last year for Tasker to be on the ballot because if he gets there, there's no other surefire people taking spaces.
So
No,
here's
that-
the interesting thing, guys. We have no overlaps anymore.
Yep. I guess the system.
What do you mean?
Well,
Lynch, Seymour, and Holt are all going.
kind
so-
of right. is
The
what-
lists are the same.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's no overlaps.
Yeah.
We're
I
down
guess
to
we're just
6.
voting for one list here on out.
Yeah.
So
So
we're down to 7.
we're down to 7. Well, we're down to 6 really because we've already automatically put in Peyton Manning. We have 2 people who received no votes for elimination. Do we want to put them through right now?
Let's do it.
Say it
Can
again.
we get us Woodson and Faneca?
Well, that's what I'm asking. Like, do we universally just want to say because the 2 people here have received no votes in any stage? So I think it's
No, let's
almost
just keep going and see how it. Let's just keep going and
Yeah.
see
Wanna
what
do it
happens.
that way. All right. Do we want to do 1 round of 2 or just like eliminate boom? Or does anyone want to try to save any one of these guys?
I think we make our last 2 cuts now.
We'll make our last
Yeah.
2 cuts.
Cut 2.
Yep.
Cut
Okay.
2.
We have our 5, right?
I voted for one person every time and they're still there. I don't know. You guys aren't agreeing with me.
Here's the thing. We're
It's
all
You
okay,
and me
man.
both, Evan. You and me both.
It's democracy. Don't worry.
Yeah. It'll all
Does
work out.
democracy work in your country? I haven't heard that.
Uh,
We're working on it.
Sorry.
Ballots.
Sorry, it was there.
Yeah, the mail-in ballots are killing us.
Yeah.
got Mom, I need to get my Viking outfit.
Oh, enough.
What the hell was that?
Okay,
we've
so
already
we
got
need
some
to-
votes
we need
in.
to
So we got
eliminate
2
2.
votes, and it's the lists are the same.
Two votes to eliminate. Got it.
Thanks.
All right, here we go.
Oh my
Vinny,
gosh.
do you have your Shrek mask? Because you got to knock on some doors, buddy.
Unfortunately, I do not have a Shrek mask, but I did come prepared.
Oh boy.
I did come prepared with my own donkey accent, but I don't think it's really good enough. But
No.
I didn't have the. Unfortunately, Party City was closed and they didn't have any Shrek masks, so I'll just make it up to them by whoever loses. I'll just let's just say that whoever misses it, I just say the term "Shrek is love, Shrek is life."
Oh, no! No!
Okay, someone will have to explain that one to me later because I don't
Yeah,
get it.
that's,
Settle down, everybody here.
It's an old meme, but that's if you miss it. That's if you miss it.
I missed it
If you
completely.
really want to know, you
older than
really
shit
want to
here.
know.
yeah, but well, we can look it up on our own time. We're fine.
Yeah, let's keep.
All right.
Turn safe search off.
Oh Jesus.
This is exciting. Now, are we still gonna do? We're still gonna do the up down final vote, right?
Yeah. And if
Okay,
anyone who
cool.
votes
Do you want to do
down-
that or like as a
Oh hell yeah, I want to
Alright.
do it.
Should.
sounds good?
Maybe.
Yep. Yeah, I can't imagine that there are going to be that many people voting down, but who knows?
Sure.
I want to vote down Peyton Manning.
Well, I think it's a good idea, just in case
Plot
next
twist.
year somehow we get Tasker in the final 5. There might be some downs there.
Bit late for that.
I
Okay,
had
so I've
Tasker-
got 5 in so far.
I've got some downs left. I keep downing them and you guys keep putting them through. So.
All right, so missing just from a few of you.
So, Vinny, do you remember offhand when was the last time the voters voted down one of the 5 the modern finalists?
I can tell you right
It's
now,
been-
the last time that happened was Paul Tagliabue a couple times, but he made it in via Centennial class, and
Yeah, but
I'm happy about it. Other people are saying, no, it's so bad. And I'm like saying, I don't care, man. The guy, I would have.
Commissioners are
He
tough,
made
but-
it to the final five.
Yes, he did make it to a final five
Yeah,
a couple
seven.
times, actually. I know that he made it at least one time.
yeah,
All right, so I'm just waiting on Alec and Vinny, unless there's someone else I'm missing on here.
Trying, okay.
yeah, they haven't done it. They haven't done it since 07. In 06, they did Michael Irvin. And then in 05, they had the single worst Hall of Fame class of all time, where they elected 4 quarterbacks only.
So I have to choose 5 from this group.
No, actually, I
No,
think
you're
two-
just taking
two
two out there.
cuts.
Two out, Alec.
they had, yeah, that was the worst one. Now, to be fair, I mean, Benny Friedman and Fritz Pollard should have been in a while ago, but
I have no trouble with the 4 guys who got in. I have trouble with the fact they elected Marino, Young, Friedman, Pollard, and nobody else.
I mean,
So.
you could have the
All
opportunity.
right,
of putting
Alec, you're
Rayfield-
you're the decision maker here, buddy.
So many people in the senior class because they do stuff like that. That's
Yeah.
why so many people have been pushed to the senior class because they do stuff like that.
Yeah, I have a project which I'm partway through because I'm too busy, unfortunately.
Does it involve Pudge
That where I'm
Heffelfinger and
going
Laverne
back and
Dilwig?
saying if they never voted anyone down, what would the Hall of Fame look like?
A lot
So,
better.
Yeah, I'm like in 2008 right now. So
Okay, guys, we have it. We don't have to go to another thing. We have a tie for 6th and 7th out.
we have a tie.
We have well, basically, no, they're out. So I mean, like, I don't have
Oh,
a
they're
tie.
tied. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
So,
All right, let's see.
all right. So
Put them in
Bold
I'll
underline.
just go from the
Talented.
official list at this point.
Go underline.
Yeah,
Oh,
Wow.
Sorry, Tony Boselli has been eliminated.
real close.
Wow.
He's my 6th guy.
All right. So last one out.
I think you have to italicize him too, Kirk.
No,
It's gotta be
underline.
all 3.
My
Underline
bad.
All 3.
My bad.
You also
There you
have
go.
to send a
You know,
notarized.
like
No one's gonna know.
there's not a lot of budget here for this, Jack. I'm working on it. I kind of spent it all on like trying to get Richmond Webb on this other project. So
I love it.
yeah, appreciate it. And so the last
He
one.
should also be in the Hall of Fame. Here
Yes,
we
he
go.
should.
Moment of truth.
He should.
All right, so last one. So I'll just
This
sort of
is gonna
like
kill
make
me.
this interesting. As you can imagine, Charles Woodson received no votes all the way through.
Okay.
So nobody voted him out.
I did a good
Good job
job
there.
pushing him.
Yeah.
Exactly,
credit to
exactly.
Glenn.
I mean, like, it was perfect.
He was
was
off my
perfect.
list until
Alan Faneca and Calvin Johnson are also not unanimous, but pretty damn close. Which
Here we
leaves
go.
us with Zach Thomas and
Yay.
LeRoy Butler.
This is gonna kill me.
All right.
Oh,
so-
here it is.
Ugh.
This is the one we've all been waiting for. It's Zach Thomas and LeRoy Butler.
Miami versus Green Bay.
It's gonna be Thomas. Thomas is gonna be in. Damn it.
Thomas is in. LeRoy
Ah!
Yeah.
But hey, Jack, the fact that I'd say this, the fact that you're the only one that got one of his guys in and your other guy was the final cut. You were the best one at debating this by far.
David, did you vote against LeRoy Butler the entire time like I did?
actually, no, actually, I did not vote against LeRoy Butler.
Okay, Butler, I voted against all the way through. He's too
Boselli,
far.
I voted against every time.
So
What's really interesting about this is after all our efforts and after all the efforts of the actual voters, these 5 could very well be that actual. I mean, this is
Could be.
this. If you look at voting patterns, this is what I tend to do in tendencies and how voters view players. I mean, there are a couple possible shifts here, but this could very well be the 5.
All
I mean,
right,
it's not
guys.
out of question by any means.
Guys, I need somebody to tell me, well, what am I missing on Zach Thomas? Because I watched him his whole career. I remember him in college. Like, he'd have been one of my absolute favorite players if he was a Bear. But is he really like all that? I'm looking at some of these names we eliminated over him, guys that were at points the best
I'm
at
not
their
the one to answer
position.
that because Thomas wasn't one of my guys.
You're
I
very
voted out on this also.
So
You-
according,
you
again,
like Brian Urlacher in the Hall of Fame.
Analytics are crazy. off.
Urlacher is a
Hall of Fame.
gajillion times.
Thomas
Yes,
is in the Hall.
Urlacher is a gajillion times better than Zach Thomas. Okay, a couple things.
Wow.
First of all, and really, I want to listen, but I'm just going to address this.
They
Tom,
are
I'm going to address it. You asked the question. First of all, when people look at the first team All Pro thing, Zach Thomas was getting first team All Pros before Urlacher was in the league. So it's not a one-to-one comparison. Once Urlacher was in the league, Urlacher was getting more of them. Second of all, Urlacher's just an all-around better athlete. He's got the exact same, if your thing on Zach Thomas is he knows exactly where to be, that was part of Urlacher's whole game too. If you look at interception yards, if you look at fumble return yards, he's got the yards because he's got the speed. So he's got the same brains. He's just better. He's just better. Should he have been our first ballot? I don't know. That's up for debate. But he's not. It's not like up for debate that he's a Hall of Famer. But sell me on Zach Thomas because I want to know what I'm missing.
I can't. He's not my guy.
Thomas waiting so long. That's my point. Brian Urlacher deserves being in the Hall of Fame. Zach Thomas had very similar production in the NFL, yet he's waited for years. There's a huge disconnect between the two.
Again, an
Zach
analytic.
Thomas really wait that long though?
Yes, he waited a very long time. It took him a while before he even made it as a semifinal.
Well, no, I know that, but I mean, like he's still got years of eligibility though.
But what I'm saying is we're comparing him to a Hall of Famer in the same era at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Analytically, again, using that metric, and again, who you can take it however you want. But of all the people who are nominated for the Hall of Fame, are using their Hall of Fame metric, Zach Thomas is the fourth best player out of the 106. It's Manning, Faneca, Woodson, Thomas.
Yeah. Fourth best.
Fourth best.
That's nothing against Urlacher. Urlacher's first ballot for a reason. I'm just saying, like, at the same time, and in case you're curious, no, there are no deranged Dolphins fans in my closet that were begging me to vote for Thomas this
closet?
time.
Do we want to know what's in your closet?
No, we don't.
It's a deranged fan, just not for the Dolphins.
No, it's actually some sneakers, some shirts.
We're good.
That wasn't literal, but yeah, go on.
I'm a Dolphins fan, and I didn't vote for Thomas each time. I just don't think he's that. But I respect the community. So it was down. I put in Butler, not Thomas, but
I had Thomas as my number 4 guy, and Butler was number 7. So they're close. Again, when you do your defense, trying to get 3 offense, 2 defense, whatever. If you want, I mean. Okay. It's just, again, it's a pecking order. Maybe next year it'll be the other guy.
Okay, so Ted, let's sort of address that for a sec. Did any of you, so when you're looking at this, look at when you say like a pecking order in terms of like offense, defense, to sort of like look at I want to have a kind of balance in terms of both sides of the ball. I mean, I try not to, but I admit biases come through. So.
I had a bias towards the offensive linemen. I would have liked to see offensive linemen get in, and then we did get a good one in. I thought Boselli, again, short career, but he was very, very good.
Yeah. So for me, I usually go by position.
Okay.
And so I eliminated LeRoy Butler because I thought that I prefer John Lynch to LeRoy Butler, regardless one way or another. Okay. So I had Lynch over Butler, and then I just kept voting against Butler because I already had, even though after Lynch was eliminated, I still thought Lynch was better. But when it came down to it, like my final 2, I have 6 guys who I think are going to have a shot to get in this year. We have 5 of them here. I think the 6th one's Boselli. I've told you there's a big push for Boselli out there. I'm worried that Boselli's going to get in and Faneca isn't, not because Boselli doesn't deserve it, but because Faneca deserves it more. No offense to Boselli. And so when it came down to it, I honestly voted for Boselli instead of Thomas because I figured that's what everybody else was already doing. And we already had an offensive lineman on the list. Like Patrick Willis is a Hall of Famer. He's not going to get in until Zach Thomas is there, is all.
My philosophy is different. I went with the 5 best players, regardless of position, regardless of side of the ball. I said, who are the 5 best players on this list? I don't think the 5 best players are technically on this list, in my opinion. But of this list, I picked the 5 best players, regardless of offense, defense, or position.
So you didn't let that. So you didn't let that go like at all, because which is interesting because like I try not to, but then sometimes, and Evan can sort of like talk on that because we've been talking about this for God knows how long. but I find myself almost more trying to predict what I think they're going to do more than what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
like that too. I mean, I mean, if I was to do it my way, it probably wouldn't be like this. And if I really had it my way, I'd probably have at least 2 seniors and a contributor every single year.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I don't know. The reason as to why I also probably voted for I didn't vote for Clay Matthews at all, in case you're curious about that. But there's a part of me deep down that makes me think, ugh, you're gonna really have Clay Matthews over some other guys, and I didn't vote against Tori Holt until like the round of 10, and I'm completely disagreeing with John Turney says. And John Turney, I have history with him. He put me in the timeout chair a couple times on Twitter.
Okay, who hasn't
Can't
put
imagine
Penny in a
that.
timeout?
Yeah, but he's done it twice. He's put me in the timeout chair twice. But the reason why is because Holt said that Holt was just the second chair. Excuse me, princess. But at the same time, like, you're really going to say Tori Holt was a second chair? Really? In many cases, I would argue was better than Bruce, but apparently
Yes.
this is a second chair.
I thought I did argue that, but apparently not
Yes.
very well.
I think the other thing in addition to offense defense is I think Lynch will get in before Butler. So you weigh
I
out
struggle
how
between
they've
those
been
two.
waiting. Now, again, I had Butler ahead, but if I had to predict it, I think Lynch is going to go further in the process than Butler will.
Yeah.
That plays
Yeah, I
a
agree
role.
with you.
Half the voters are going to think that way, and half of them are going to do, best player and weed out all that stuff. Same thing. It'll be this Calvin Johnson, Tori Holt, Reggie Wayne. Well, Holt's been waiting longer, so let's get him in, and then Calvin. Right or wrong, that's how it is. And so there's a divide there, and then what happens is what we do, and you never know which way it's going to shake out.
And I think there is a game involved. Oh, sorry, Jim,
Yeah.
go.
Did we ever vote on these 5 up or down? What were we gonna?
No.
Were we gonna?
No, let's do it. Let's see what happens.
That's it.
All right, so, I'm sorry, what was that?
Did we ever vote on the
Gonna
5
do an up and down?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, like the other 3?
No, like it got to 5 and we were gonna vote. Up
Are
or
we
down.
going to vote for
Yeah,
Peyton
the up.
Manning? Yes. You know,
Okay, yeah, sure,
Yeah,
let's do
the
it.
up down vote.
All right,
You need 80%. How many do we have here?
we got 10.
we got
We
done.
need 8 out of 10.
All right.
Perfect.
All right, so Peyton Manning. Mhm.
Up, down, up.
Yeah. Peyton Manning's wife.
Oh, you
I don't think I've seen her.
No, well, no, it's more because of the, Evan, you want to take that one?
No, Eli Manning.
Ronnie Harrison got busted for HGH because he was dumb enough to have it sent to his house in his name. Peyton Manning was smart enough to have the HGH sent in his wife's name. So
Don't forget, Antonio Gates also has that same situation of doing PEDs, but in football they don't care. In baseball,
Well done.
It's-
Yeah, you're-
it's a little different there.
Who is
But
on
you
the
know,
19th?
but come
Okay.
on.
All right.
What do we got?
Alan-
Alan
Alan
Faneca.
And
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
Calvin Johnson.
Megatron, yeah.
All right. Zach Thomas.
I'm gonna go down.
Oh,
down.
wow. So what do we got?
7.
it's two.
No, that's not enough.
Is that 7 out of 10?
That's not enough.
Okay, fair enough.
We're saying-
Charles Woodson.
So you guys hate the seniors committee. I understand.
All right, so do we, yeah, actually, speaking of the seniors committee, do we
Now
want to
you
just do
only
like a
have
quick thing for the 3?
So we only
Tom,
have a four-man class is what we're
Yeah, we
saying.
only have a 4-man class now because of that. So now
Right.
he's back on and other people get backed up, guys. If they make the final 5, they got to get through.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
you might as well just do it. I mean, if not, like, you know, that's a big issue that I have in like other cases. I mean, you're in the final 5, you might as well just be in, because is it really worth, you know, not having Zach Thomas in? Because all it's going to do is hold up the process for someone else down the line.
Yeah. So then Butler gets pushed back another year, or somebody else.
That's
I mean, I
That's-
understand
that's-
even if you don't like Zach Thomas, think
No,
of it like
hold on.
this.
I was fine to forego the thumbs up, thumbs down, but I voted my conscience.
Exactly.
Let's get another.
Let me
Let's
go
get
ahead.
another
Vinny.
count.
Vinny.
Oh, jeez. Okay, let's just move on. Okay, we got
Do
3
with it what you
seniors.
want.
Let's just do those quick.
Sure,
Tom Flores. Does anyone have an issue against Tom Flores being in the hall?
not at
No.
all.
And if you didn't see
No.
that beer commercial, please do. It's awesome.
They're good. Yeah.
Bill Nunn.
Come on, it's a duh.
Okay. Shit, I'm blanking on.
Pearson.
Drew
Thank
Pearson.
you, Drew Pearson.
Yeah. duh.
I'll abstain. I don't like
All
the
right.
Cowboys.
Gentlemen, I think we're done.
So we got our
Awesome.
8 guys right there. Is it 8 or are we doing like the 80%? Like, how are we doing that? Like,
Yeah, no, it's only 7 guys. We voted out Zach Thomas at the end.
All right, so what are we gonna do? Put Boselli and Butler here, and then what is this? A veto? Is this a recall? Is this what you Americans do?
With this, what you
We-
want.
Is this the
veto 'em.
electoral college being sort of like ripped out? Like what
it
is
is
this?
sort of like the electoral college, but you know,
Rhode
This is more
Island
like British
voted
Parliament.
Guys,
Um,
can you hear me?
Works
you know,
for
let's,
us.
maybe
Jack,
we can
fine,
like
dude.
if we want, we can do a vote of like if we want, we could actually do a vote of like the final
No.
3.
No. Jack, what do you got?
Am I on mute? Can anybody hear me?
Now, what you got, Jack?
Yeah,
My internet's bad. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got you.
Here's my feeling. Vinny, you asked why would you vote down on someone? I respect all these guys, and I want to make that clear. And I didn't play football, and that's why I'm asking. I mean, I played like pickup games, but I didn't play, and that's why I'm asking. Can someone explain to me why what I watched was so incorrect that I think someone is not a Hall of Famer who everybody else here does? Now, Tom, you made the point about the stats. I look at their stats and I don't see any similarity at all. Like I said, Urlacher had explosive game-changing athleticism, and that shows up in the numbers. It shows up in the return yards. It shows up in twice as many sacks. It shows up in it shows up everywhere. So I don't look at Zach Thomas and go, yeah, that dude's a Hall of Famer. Is this going to back it up? That's not on me. I didn't vote for him.
that's my thought.
So I would have voted for a number of other people ahead of him. And I respect the guy. And I'm just one man. Maybe I'd feel differently if I was an AFC East guy, or if I was a Dolphins guy, or if maybe. But like, I watched him. I looked at him and I was like, that's a damn good football player. But I didn't look at him and go, that's a guy who changed games, or that's a dude, I just didn't see it. I look at Zach Thomas and I don't understand why he's here and Patrick Willis isn't here. That was someone who changed football games to me. Brian Urlacher. Now looking at this list, the difference to me between Calvin and Tori Holt, and the difference between Tori Holt and Reggie Wayne, to me, is pretty clear. That's what it looked like to me. The difference between LeRoy Butler and John Lynch, pretty clear. The difference between Urlacher and Zach Thomas, or Urlacher and Sam Mills, clear. So I would vote down for Zach Thomas because I don't think he should be in this mix. And if it backs people up, that, what can I say? I didn't vote for him.
Here for me. I don't get the LeRoy Butler one. I don't get LeRoy Butler as, I understand your thing. I disagree that on LeRoy
Yeah, that's
Butler
fine.
vehemently. But if LeRoy Butler were the 5th person, I would vote him in.
Yep.
Because we have I hate, as much as I don't think LeRoy Butler deserves it over multiple other people on this list, there's in my opinion, a moral obligation to all the people on this list that once they get to the final 5, you got to get them through. Because otherwise you end up with a situation in which we have so many backed up people that we just end up with people never even getting a hearing. Like we're to the final year now of Clay Matthews. Do I think Clay Matthews should be on this list? No, I don't. But at least he's getting a hearing. I can't say this. There are a whole bunch of other people. Steve Wisniewski's never gotten a hearing at this point, right? Steve Wisniewski was a hell of a football player. Steve Tasker's never gotten a hearing because we have people who get backed up. Now, at this point, we've done a pretty good job of clearing people through. But back in 1998 through 2007, they routinely back people up, and that's what's caused some major backup now. So that's my thing on it. Even if you don't think Zach Thomas is worthy of being there, once he gets to this point, like I just don't get LeRoy Butler. But LeRoy Butler were there, and he's very close to being there. I would have voted for Butler again.
But Evan. But then Evan, why do we have the up 80% vote?
I mean, we're just
Do we have the up and
following
down
their own
80% vote?
rules.
Why
Yeah,
do you have
I-
anything?
no,
I don't
We
know.
did it. Why does it exist?
You tell me.
it's been in since
I don't have
it's
I
been
don't
in
have
since the
I don't
beginning.
have a good reason for it.
I mean, it's been in the rules since the beginning. I think the premise of that is that you go through these rounds of votes, right, from the 15 to the 10 to the 5, and at that point, every one of those is going to be for the first time, get that individual sort of, ascension to the throne or whatever, and that's the principle behind it. And again, if you go back in the history of voting, we've talked about this. There were a number of years, many times where, they'd end up with 2, 3, or 4. So that would hold to that idea that, yeah, you have that last chance to make a decision, the guy's in or out. But I think the voters have realized, and we've seen that in the last decade, this backlog has created such a problem that for the most part, they're willing to endorse these 5. Let's be clear about this. We know, well, they don't release the vote totals, but we know that those are not anonymous or not 100%. There are probably some guys who got through in that 5 that got the 80%, but not 100%. So there are probably still some voters who, and it's a philosophy, right? If you don't think the guy's worthy, then you're not going to vote him in. The term they call those are the silent assassins in the room, because they won't say anything. And then at the very end, they're just vote down the guy. Again, it's a philosophy one way or another. But it's been there since day one, this idea. And it really ticked a lot of the voters off because they did not do that for the centennial class, right? All those guys got advanced. They weren't voted on individually. Some of the voters who weren't on the centennial class blue ribbon panel really resented that they got a quicker path into the typical modern, or even the seniors and careers, and now the coaches are getting with the up and down votes. So it's just the way they want to make sure there's that last check of sort of confidence that the voters are going to say, yeah, each of these 5 guys deserves a shot and should be in or not.
Can I ask?
I should also mention that, keep in mind, a lot of these people also are pretty bitter of the fact.
Yeah, who was the third person that I know? Glenn and Jack. David. Okay. So I'm just wondering though, if I've heard from Jack and Glenn that you guys stand firm, and again, I think that's your right, but I just wanted to make sure everybody understood the process and understanding the consequences. And I think maybe if we would have known it beforehand, maybe the votes would have been different, or maybe not. So I think it's just important to point that out. Because this discussion we're having now would have happened before the up and down vote.
Correct.
Because if Zach Thomas ends up the 5th person and gets voted down, Glenn, that's very possibly Tasker's spot next year.
For sure.
But
yeah.
Wait, let me hold on. Let me throw a counter. 1 second. Let me throw a counter into that. We took it as an assumed that all 5 were going to go in, and 3 people voted against 1 guy, and everybody else voted for everybody. So if we do this again next year, and I would enjoy doing it again next year, I think we're all going to remember that there were some pretty strong arguments against Zach Thomas. Now, like I said, I am here to change my mind. Tell me why you look at Zach Thomas and you see a Hall of Famer. Now, Tom, I think, has had some of the absolute best arguments of anybody in this group. I happen to disagree with that one. I've heard the Urlacher one, and I've looked into it, and I don't see it, because I looked at Brian Urlacher and I said, that is someone who is different. That is a different dude. That guy's remarkable. That is a different kind of cat. And I don't look at Zach Thomas and see that, Now I understand what you don't look at LeRoy Butler and see that. That's fine. But if the argument to be made, when I say make me the argument, sell me on Zach Thomas, if the argument to be made is, well, his stats are the same as Urlacher, I'm not with that. Should Urlacher have been a first ballot Hall of Famer? I actually broke this down before that vote, and I said, look, Ray Lewis is going to get it. You have to give it to one of the wide receivers. And that means that if you give it to Randy, you kind of have to give it to T.O. because he should have already been in. So they're probably both going to go in. And then that's like 3 guys who not everybody really likes. So the good guys are going to, and that's going to be Urlacher and Dawkins and Faneca. And I was like, one of, those 3 guys, you're going to have a mix of those as like the good guys. And I was right. So should Urlacher have been a first ballot Hall of Famer? I don't know, but I look at the guy and I'm like, that's a Hall of Famer. I don't have to think about it. I don't need any number to tell me he's a Hall of Famer. I look at him and I go, he changed games. He did things that was different than what other people could do. And you combine that with the longevity of doing it, the consistency of doing it, what his teammates say, what his opponents say. And then you look at the stats and the stats back it up. And I don't have to have a conversation about it. Calvin Johnson, I don't have I Peyton Manning, I don't have to have a conversation about these guys. So
Well, here's
Zach Thomas is just not what it is. So what I'm saying is that I don't view it as like, oh, I created the backlog, because I've been voting Zach Thomas out every round. So I didn't create the backlog. I would have voted for any number of people.
I voted LeRoy Butler out every round. Had he made
That's
it,
fine. We
I still
disagree.
would've
That's
voted
fine. We
for
disagree. We disagree.
May I mention? I also,
When it comes to the down up vote, there's what, 10 of us?
Yeah.
But there's almost 50 when it
True.
comes. So there's
Yes.
3 or 4 people that don't like one player, they're not going to get the down vote. In this, if there's 3 people that don't like one player, they're going to get the down vote. So if there was 50 of us, all these people would go. Most likely.
I think also too, if I could, what I'm hoping is going to transpire as we do this in the future, I'm hoping we're going to keep doing this, is that, and I love this core group that we have, but I hope it grows.
Same here.
And I hope we have, like people from different backgrounds, different fan bases, which I think is more important than, like where people are from, right? So we don't have a lot of, like with the exception of Tom, who actually lives in the East, like we need some West Coast, thought processes here. One thing I love about this group is we all have, not one of us cheers for the same team. Vinny cheers for nobody, which is awesome. So
I kind of
no, and I mean that in a good way.
Players, but I mean, I this is who I cheer for. I cheer for guys from the 1890s, special teamers, assistant coaches.
But you know what I mean, like
unknown contributors.
Sure, but I mean, like for me personally, like when nobody wanted Ronde, it's like I'll jump on that. Like I hated this guy because he killed my Saints over and over.
Those are my 5 choices.
No, but I mean, but you know what I'm trying to say, right? So it's like I probably watched Ronde Barber more than most. Glenn, you've watched Tasker more than most. You had a great thing about Cornelius Bennett the last time we talked, and then even Richmond Webb, because like you were Bills Dolphins, right? So we need.
Absolutely.
If we can get this to 20, and I think we can, or even bigger than that, that's sort of like our big goal. And to your point, Jack, I mean, I think we can get other people really having that opinion that you want to hear, and we can do. This is a great start for what we've done. I'm so excited, and it's going to be bigger and bigger and bigger.
And hopefully, I know that Paul has some skepticism about this, but Paul, I really do think we're on something. I think we might actually be more liked than the actual voters. What do you think?
He's on mute.
Sorry, what was that again? Quick question.
I said, I know you're pessimistic about our chance of maybe changing things for the future, but there could be a chance. You can never count on anything. I mean, hell,
we do. If we don't, we don't. That's all right.
Well,
what do you think, Paul?
I think as the voters change, right, the old guys are still there, right? There's still guys that have been on that committee for decades. Those are the ones that's hard to get to. But as more younger voters come on that are more engaged in social media, right, and more interested in hearing other viewpoints, they're going to be more receptive, I think, to some of the fan stuff. I just don't think we're there yet. But if you look at the age profile, and I applaud Baker and the Hall because they have made changes, as we all know, and there's some guys that were moved off the committee, so they are increasing the diversity. They're getting some different views in there. They're getting some younger folks because for way too long the committee was stagnant all through the 70s and 80s and well in the 90s. So Vinny, I think as we get more voters who are basically more in tune to fans and social media, that they're going to be more receptive. I just don't think we're there yet because there's just too many old conjunction writers there who just, most of them aren't even active on social media. I mean, I could probably think on my one hand those voters that are currently on social media engaged in talking about the hall. There just isn't very many, but there will be someday.
I will
And, you know,
say
I made
that-
joke about I
would
made
add
joke about those 10-person class. Yeah, what was I?
No, go ahead.
I mean, I made joke. I mean, whenever I say I want the 10-person class, I mean, that's both joke, both half serious, half joking. Would I like it to be like, you know, an extra senior or maybe a modern that's done in a special way by like, you know, like some players and maybe like sure, maybe, but that's really just setting up for the future. And of course, you know, even though that people might be getting younger, I'll make sure that no one, regardless of age,
I would say though, if we're looking at, if we had to compare our list, we were saying, oh, we like our list compared to what the actual list. If the actual voters put in any of these 5 guys, it doesn't matter what 5, and we only put in 4, vast majority of fans, I don't care what 5 guys the actual voters put in, would prefer their list over what we just did.
I agree with you. I mean, I know that there might be people like Adam, and if you know who Adam is, he's my rival on social
Nobody
media.
knows who Adam is, bro.
But continue.
Yeah, Adam is.
How do you have a rival?
I think, yeah, I think the one
You
thing we
know,
learned
Benny?
about this, more than anything, is as much as we complain from the outside, it is not an easy exercise. Like, I respect the hell out of Jack. Jack and I just disagree. There's nothing wrong with Jack and I disagreeing. He just have strong viewpoints with a rational basis for where we're coming from. We just disagree on this one thing. And I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying Jack's wrong. Jack has a very good reason for why he voted the way he did. And we just disagree on this. And just showing that even people who are nerds about this, not to
Like
denigrate,
us.
we are nerds. Like, I got spreadsheets with 47 tabs on them on this, right? On baseball, football, hockey, and the Rock Hall of Fame. I do not have basketball because I'm not that insane. But like the fact that we nerds like this are still going into it and we still disagree this much, it shows how hard this whole process is and how challenging it is. Because I think our list is not that far off what it's going to be. It's going to be Manning, it's going to be Woodson, it's going to be one of the offensive linemen, one of the wide receivers, and a wild card. That's what the list is. I think it's probably going to be Johnson and Faneca and maybe Boselli from what I'm seeing, but that's essentially what it's going to be. I don't know what it's ended up, but we're ended up essentially in the same place I think they're going to end up with.
All right. So since we're here at this point, what do we think about after the Super Bowl, maybe a couple weeks after, when they've decided all this, reconvening and just discussing what they got right, what they didn't get right, what we would have done? What do you think?
We'd also know their
cool.
cuts. We'd know the cuts from 15 to 10, from 10 to 5.
Exactly. So like, just like have some fun, just sort of like how we, well, obviously we know how we did it.
Postmortem analysis.
Yeah, postmortem, yeah. I've been watching a lot of Law and Order, probably way too much.
Let me raise the obvious question. First of all, Kirk, yes, absolutely, I'm in. Let me raise the obvious question. Do we want to take a look at the other 2 and have a debate about whether or not we should put in a 5th?
You mean Butler and Boselli?
Yeah, I'm not.
Why
I'm
not? Yeah, we're
down
here at this
on-
point, sure.
Why not?
Because here's the thing. I would have voted for any number of people in that 5th spot.
Mhm.
I just look at that and I'm just like, that's just not a guy to me. No
I had
offense to him.
Boselli in
And
that 5th spot.
All right, so just sort of like we're deciding like who's our number 6 out of Butler and Boselli.
I don't know. I don't know how you want to do it. I'm just saying if people
Kirk,
feel like
Sorry, how close?
this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah, go ahead.
I feel strongly, obviously. I'm not going to vote for someone who I don't think should should do it. But
Okay.
I also understand the argument behind the backlog, even if I don't think that just because, see, now I know how third-party voters feel, except that there's a lot more at stake there. But I don't feel fine.
You're a weird country. We don't have this.
No, I know. You guys are, you guys are,
Five parties. What are you talking about?
here's my point. I understand the principle of saying we should have a class of 5. And there are plenty of people on this list who I would vote in right now as a 5th.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, do we want to somehow determine, and I'll stand back on how that works, but do we want to somehow determine a way to get a 5th?
Can
Yeah.
I ask
Being
you?
that,
Or do you want to annotate that Zach Thomas was the up-down vote, but put him in anyway because it was a 70%er versus the fact that we only have 10 members versus the 50, where 3 thumbs down wouldn't have done anything.
Based
a
on our
50-person vote.
process, based on our process and what we had discussed, we got down to our 5. Our 5 are our 5 at this
Right.
And so
Kirk, I have a quick question for you though. So how close were Boselli and Thomas?
Hey guys, I'm gonna take off now. I actually feel pretty tired.
Oh, yeah, no worries, Alec.
Yeah,
Right, so how close were Boselli and Thomas? Like,
Yeah. So
Hey, you guys take care.
take care, Alec.
Mhm.
So
Boselli,
I mean,
Butler,
it
and
was
Thomas.
from the way you at least Vanna Whited it. It made it seem like Thomas was 5 and Boselli was 6, right? So how close?
it wasn't that close.
Okay. Because I
Wasn't-
mean,
okay, well, it really wasn't close. I'm just looking back here. No, it really wasn't close.
yeah, because
Okay.
to be honest, I voted against Boselli on that last one and technically for Thomas because
Mhm.
other people had voted against Boselli and I was trying to come to a thing. I would out of those 3 guys, Boselli's my person. So, and if that wouldn't have made a difference, it wouldn't have made a difference. But
No. Sounds like one vote would not have changed.
yeah, that was my real question. If one
Yeah.
vote changed, so
I think we go with what we did.
and put it in. Yeah, it is what it
fine
is.
with that.
Yeah, I guess so. Like,
I'll
With
take all
me,
those
I'm-
Dolphin fans tweets.
hey, don't worry. Listen,
I'm getting the Packers fans. Don't feel bad.
don't feel bad. It'll get some of them off me. I'll just go to someone that looks somewhat similar to me.
Oh, Vinny, you love it though.
A reminder, this vote does not
Oh, I
deal
want the
with
smoke.
any real backlogs. Like, this was a mock thing. Like, we did not prevent anybody from getting in the hall.
That's true. Exactly.
Oh yeah.
Kevin Williams, everybody, whoever's watching.
Don't worry. Like, you sold me on Kevin Williams, Evan, and Tom. You
Yeah.
definitely sold me. I know that Tom's not here, but he sold me on Nayland
And Willie Anderson, someone I never considered before this whole thing.
and honestly,
God, he should be. He
like
should
when
be.
it
Never
when
considered.
it comes
and I
to
was wrong.
Bengals fans, like we know how Raiders fans feel, we know how Broncos fans and Browns fans and all these other yada, yada. If there's any fan, and I'm going to say this again, if any fan base feels like they've been slighted by the voters and by the people of Canton, Ohio, and Shrek, I mean David Baker, it is the fans of the Cincinnati Bengals, and
Vinny, aren't you trying to be like an actual Hall of Fame voter? You really want to be on camera talking shit about the guy running the show?
Yeah, this is
Well,
unfair.
I'm not making fun of it. I'm just saying, like, listen, David Baker is a great guy, and I really do respect the guy a lot.
You called
But at
him
the same-
Shrek.
No,
Well,
he
I
looks
called him
like
Shrek, to be honest.
that's our nickname we give him.
Dude.
Middle school principal, a very fun-loving, happy man, but yet very, very strong build. And at the same time, like he just happens to be like bear a similar, somewhat slight resemblance to Shrek. But some even said meanwhile my middle school principal, he looks a lot like Thanos.
Oh, good. So,
You're the
all right.
only one in this group who actually remembers what their middle school principal looks like.
I remember mine.
Call
'cause
me
he was
Vinny
a
Boom
character.
Box.
Okay, my bad.
That's why.
Yeah. Mine had a ridiculous accent, so that made a big difference.
Must have been Canadian. All right,
No,
well,
gents, I gotta
gentlemen,
head
I
off
think
for
we're
work.
done.
Oh, awesome. Great.
Also, Paul, what was your middle school principal like? And and Kirk, were their accents much thicker than
All right.
yours?
On that note, thank you very
I
much,
have no
gentlemen. It's a
thick
pleasure.
accent, so I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Thanks, guys.
See you in a couple
Uh,
weeks.
Anytime, guys. It's always nice speaking to you.
Kirk, when
Always.
can we
Right, take care.
Kirk, can we tweet this? Can we
Thanks,
share
Kirk.
this?
God, I wish I knew how to make this live. It took me forever to figure this part
No,
out.
no. I mean, just like the results.
Yeah, absolutely. I can do that.
Are
Do
they
you want to do that,
embargoed?
or do you want me to do it?
Why don't you do it and we can all retweet it?
All right, sounds good.
Have it come from the
Cool.
official site.
Oh, yeah, from the official site, because I'm so goddamn official. All right, sounds good.
Kirk,
Later,
I know
guys.
you also said
Later.
All right, later.
about getting back together in a couple weeks. I
Yeah.
think we want to plan after that, maybe talking about senior candidates. We had
Mhm.
talked
Yes.
Sounds good.
before about
Yes,
citing-
definitely. Yes, definitely senior candidates. And here's my little caveat. At least one guy from before the 1960s. At least one guy.
Fine. It's fine with that.
Sounds
right.
good.
All right, guys.
As
Hey,
always.
Paul, thank you for joining our merry band of crazy people. And
Thank you so much, Paul. It's
Good night,
finally a
Paul.
pleasure finally seeing you in person after all these years. Oh, after all these months, however long I've known you.
All right, sounds good. Nice. All right, take care.
Take care.
See you, Evan. See you, Dave. See you guys. So long.
All right, bye.
Gotta hit leave meeting.
Yeah, Evan, how you doing, man? I got to figure this shit out here.
I know. I figured you'd want me to stick around.
Nah, I appreciate it. Stop. I might just give you a call.
Yeah. Well,
Which
we
speeds are-
do this. Hold on.
Yeah, because
Um,
I just want to figure out how to like save this shit here.
Yeah. Why don't you do that and call me when you're done?
All right, sounds good. Yeah, I'll call you right
Later.
back. Okay.
Bye-bye.